Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Platforms such as UA Weapons and Jomini W on Twitter and the Enforcer channel allowed people around the world to follow the war in a depth and a way that had never happened before. Retired General David Petraeus.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 716 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And we've had another very big day of news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we are going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And we have some really big news today because apparently down in the Nikolaevka battlefield, or more so the Volodar battlefield, Russian forces have refused their orders, and the Russian army has brought in blocking units to execute deserters and forces that are refusing their orders from their command. It is a very interesting situation, one that we've never seen devolve like this before, to the point that Russian forces are officially announcing that they are actually being shot by border or barrier forces behind their lines. But this is the first time we've ever heard of anything like this today. But it comes after a blistering defeat of Russian forces on that battlefield for days at this point, and also over the past 24 hours alone. And I'll be showing y'all some of that footage, specifically from today and also the surrounding battlefields as well. But moving on into the major news of the night, I'm going to be taking y'all to the area just north of Novomikhailivka and into Avdiivka, because we got to see that apparently Russian forces within this entire area of the front line are in a very similar situation to what we're seeing down at Novomikhailivka. Starting off with our first clip, we got to see that the 58th Brigade was using its FPV drones to target and destroy Russian infantry very close to the Novomikhailivka battlefield in Pisky. And here's the clip. We can see them flying their drones into places where Russian soldiers are hiding, either their trenches, their dugouts, or even partially destroyed structures. We can see them trying
Very
to...
skillful drone flying. That was a very small opening to try to get that drone into.
Oh yeah, I mean, they do a great job in the 58th Brigade. We may also remember them for the Warhammer 40K symbol that they so famously have used in a lot of clips. But nowadays, they're starting to revert back to their original brigade emblem here on the left side of the screen, and that's what the 58th Brigade's actual emblem is. But we can see them.
Now, see, they've also got a patch on the right of a wolf absolutely tweaking to the max, looking up at the sky.
Dude, that thing apparently has had some of that fine Peruvian blow. You know what I mean? It's like it's had a little bit too much. It's throffing and stuff. But the 58th is continuing to hammer Russian forces in this area and just slamming them to pieces, absolutely blowing away most Russian fortifications in the area, and of course resulting in fairly high losses for the Russian infantry over the past 24 hours alone. From what we understand, all of this drone footage has come over really just the past 36 hours. So while a little bit of it is a bleed over into yesterday, most of this drone footage is actually just from today alone. And we can see drone after drone hitting dead on into their bunker, really none of them missing. A very high level of accuracy, somewhere probably around 98, 99% most likely, and most likely also wiping out a good amount of Russian forces. Russian squads do not stay in the wide open trenches often, and usually only use the trenches themselves whenever there's a firefight or whenever they're coming to or out of a patrol. Going off of that and seeing that the Ukrainians are attacking the outposts and bunkers along these trench lines, and knowing that the Russians are most likely inside of them during the attack, it's a very high probability. The losses appear to be quite high for the Russians in this area. And this moves us directly on into the Russian forces down at Novomikhailivka. The Russian forces down here have actually been conducting a small offensive in support of the Marinka battle at the town of Novomikhailivka, which kind of is occurring in the area of Volodar and is considered on this channel a larger part of the Battle of Volodar. Nevertheless, Russian forces have been trying to attack the Ukrainian defensive garrison inside of Novomikhailivka and Konstantinivka, and apparently have been met with nothing but failure. Russian forces have been taking very high losses and making absolutely no gains or advances within this area for the past week nearly, and we have seen that apparently Russian forces are beginning to be discouraged and demoralized due to the rapidly high losses they've been enduring without any real support or assistance from the Russian military, or really in short, any actual signs of real progress against the Ukrainian forces. And what we saw today was something very interesting. This is a short video. Actually, it was more like 3 minutes long, so it's not that short. But it is a video that where we can see a Russian soldier representing the mutinying unit declaring that they will not be refusing the orders. Well, they will be refusing the orders of their current commanders, and explaining how bad things have gotten. And there's some very important things to get out of this clip. But I'm going to, of course, be reading off the translations and stopping it here and there to explain a couple of things that this guy is saying. And so, let's start. After yesterday's attack, during the withdrawal, those who were wounded or afraid, they called us effing refuseniks and meat. They don't consider us humans. They put up blocking units. Snipers who acted against us. So really quickly to explain what he said here, a blocking unit in a Soviet or modern Russian military sense is a military unit whose entire job is to move around the front lines wherever they really need to go, wherever it seems as though morale is dropping, and if that unit that's on the front lines, morale begins to drop too low, and it looks like they're about to begin to just rout off the battlefield or pretty much run away, it's the job of a blocking unit to execute anyone who comes within sight. So what this guy is saying right here is that there is a blocking unit currently behind them near Novomykhailivka that is executing any soldiers from this unit that are trying to leave the line for any reason. So that's what he's saying right here. So you can already see that while we don't have the video of the blocking unit doing this to this unit, he is already saying it, having been an eyewitness, and we know this to be true. There is currently such a bad situation in this area, the Russians have pulled out a blocking unit, which actually historically is fairly rare in this war, and we've never really seen that, especially at this point, but we want to start a mass appeal to all departments for this to finally stop. 3 assault groups were sent yesterday. Only 3 people made it with no support provided. To give a little bit of a context, 3 assault groups is most likely, in the context of this unit, 3 squads, and a squad usually consists of about 10 to 12 guys, even in the Russian army, and that means that out of around 36 guys or so, or around 30 of them, only 3 of them made it out alive, meaning that those assault groups had 90% fatality rates. No evacuation provided for the wounded, meaning that any of the wounded that were out there, of course, joined the KIA because they just sat out there wounded with no medical support and eventually died in the field. Once again, affirming that this was a 90% casualty rate for this battle, really a 90% fatality rate. Some were getting out any way they could. Those who returned are sent back with knives, with no guns. Our command says we're meat. They don't consider us people, treat it like meat, literally. We want this to stop. We are not people, not meat. We're Russians. Simple as. We're ready for assaults, but we don't need this leadership. We will be demanding that this leadership be dispersed. We were also told that if we gain a foothold, we will get no ammo supply. We're going to be there empty-handed. Will be no evacuation or ammo, a one-way ticket to death. Without accounting that someone might come back from there. If they return, they're collected and sent back. The 155th Brigade, Air Assault Company, 4th Company, 5th Company. 2nd, 3rd, 2nd Battalion. Sounds like he was trying to say what unit they were in and he didn't even know. So he was, just throwing out whatever until it stuck and someone went, yeah, that's it. What day is today? The 7th? 8th of February 2024. So yeah, people should know about the lawlessness of the leadership. Simply effing me. The video
Well,
clip.
that's about the first thing the Russians have ever been honest about is just simply telling the guys that they're treating them like meat and they think they're meat and they're getting thrown out like meat. That's a rare Russian honesty moment.
And it certainly is. And this has come after a lull, or really a time of quietness in this front line for really the past 48 hours. We haven't seen, because this map here that we have on stream is accounting all battlefield actions that have been recorded on video and picture evidence for the past 48 hours. We have not seen any battle action by the Russians or the Ukrainians at Novomikhailivka for 48 hours, suggesting that because this video was filmed yesterday, this unit was in mutiny before that, and it is still in mutiny or open revolt against their command as of today and yesterday. This is starting to give a very serious sign that the Russian army is once again starting to buckle under the strain in some areas, especially when meeting practically pretty much unstoppable resistance from the Ukrainians when trying to conduct an offensive. The Russian forces that have been in this area have probably taken even higher casualties as a percentage of their battle force, even compared to the Russian forces in Avdiivka. And while this is a much smaller battle and one that we don't really talk about on this channel much, it is still showing that the Russians are truly at the breaking point for their armed forces. And it seems as though that this coincides a lot with the Russians trying to make it seem like they are a lot stronger now than they ever have been, kind of like the interview from Putin tried to lay out yesterday, where he talked about the Russians, in fact, are actually stronger now than they were at the beginning of the war. And that kind of posturing and talk is not really needed unless if the country is actually in bad straits and the Russian government is trying to convince the public in Russia and the armed forces that things are actually going quite well, and maybe lull them into the sense of thinking maybe it's only my part of the country or my part of the front line that isn't doing that well compared to everyone else's, and everyone's doing just fine outside of me. That may be what the Russians are looking for, but things are not going to be getting any better for the Russian Federation, because the Norwegians announced today that they are planning on sending 10 NASAM air defense systems into Ukraine. Right now, the Ukrainians have about 16 to 18 of these things that we can account for, and that is the publicly available number. We don't know of any other countries that have sent in NASAMs, so we're assuming it is actually 16 to 18. Getting Ukraine another 10 will be increasing their NASAM's defense forces by nearly a whopping 50 or so percent, even higher than 50%, close to 60%. It is going to be amazing as an addition to the Ukrainian air defense forces, and certainly helping them to defend those skies over Ukraine that certainly need to be protected as a part of Ukraine's grand strategy. We also got to see that Finland is planning on sending another 190 million euros of military aid to Ukraine to try and help them out. We don't know what's exactly going to be included in that 190 million euro amount, but we can see that they do have some pretty interesting kinds of vehicles that they sent before. The Zizu, some Mista Bs that are actually Russian vintage, well, Soviet vintage, and the Finns bought it from the Soviets. They also have a Leopard 2 engineering vehicle, and then a heavy mortar down here in the bottom picture. Those are some of the things that the Finns have provided in the past, and this new 190 million euro support package may include more equipment and systems like those. But beyond that, while the West is continuing to support Ukraine and try and make sure that they get through this war as best as possible, we have also been hearing of something very interesting in the Russian Federation. And I have to make sure that, let's see. Interesting. I'll see what Houthi Texas had to say. I was like, what is he saying? But anyways, moving on into...
It took you a second to read that one.
Yeah, I was like, huh? That's like, wait, let me read that. But moving on into the area of Votkinsk and Izvest, because we always want to make sure that we can get y'all an update to the news that we've told y'all in the past before. It appears that what we were saying initially on this channel is, in fact, correct, which is actually pretty interesting, because to be honest with y'all, it appears that the British Ministry of Defense either listened to this channel entirely and then just made its report off of what we said on this channel, or something similar. And I'll be telling y'all what the British Ministry of Defense report said and has confirmed as far as our news went several days ago about the Votkinsk manufacturing plant blowing sky high. According to the British Ministry of Defense, on the 7th of February, social media posts highlighted an explosion in the Russian missile factory close to Izvest in Votkinsk. According to what was believed online, which from what I understand, we were probably one of the main people to push this story first, it was worker error. And many of y'all may remember that we actually ran a poll on why did it happen? Why did that explosion occur? And when we talked about it, and you know, we were talking with y'all about the answer to that and what it may be, I was largely with a group of people who said it was most likely some kind of an error in the factory or some kind of factory or worker safety that had been overlooked that led to the fire that then led to the explosion of the solid propellant. Of course, the British Ministry of Defense also ruled out the idea of it possibly being a Ukrainian drone attack because its distance from the front lines was incredibly far. On top of that, apparently, they were talking about all of the explosions that have occurred in other factories that we've documented. And then moving on down, they then go into a very detailed analysis, a lot like we did on this channel, talking about the explosion and how it was most likely due to negligent handling and storing of the highly volatile, combustible, and explosive materials. It is almost...
Yeah, that first part of that last paragraph is like basically verbatim what I said like when I was discussing the poll the other night. I said that, the Russians being careless and incompetent, being around such dangerous materials is going to definitely lead to some type of accident. That's basically like a rewording of what we said on the stream that night.
Yeah, I actually think we both were talking about the same way about this, and it looks like the British Ministry of Defense, many days later, has pretty much repeated exactly what we said. So either our analysis was solid enough that the British Ministry of Defense went with it, or everyone eventually came to the same consensus, and the British Ministry of Defense, looking across the internet, then came to the same consensus as well, or we were largely just on point, and it was just a obvious thing to say. Regardless, it is good to see that the British Ministry of Defense is backing up the information that we are telling y'all here on stream, because we always like to go back several days later and make sure that the stories we are telling y'all in the news are accurate. And
it's also pretty interesting that the entire intelligence update here from the UK seems to be pretty much based on social media posts and speculation, which is kind of unusual for them, because usually they have facts or evidence to back stuff up, but this is almost entirely just opinionated, like we were talking the other night.
Yeah, it seems as though they're trying to do some deduction, much like we do on stream. So if y'all want good military analysis, apparently we do it fairly well, because this was all dead on point to what we were saying on the 7th of February when the explosion happened. Not trying to toot our own whistle, but just putting it out there, the story that we did say several days ago appears to have been correct from the very outset, just mere hours after the explosion had occurred. Moving on from that, and outside of the Russian Federation, I've been saving this for last because we do have to do a little bit more looking into this, because some people have set off the alarm bells about this picture, but for the purposes of tonight's news, we are going to be taking the picture at face value, and I'm going to be doing additional research to figure out if the photo is in fact a genuine article, or if it is not, because it seems as though there have been some questions brought up out on the internet about this picture today. But from what we've seen, apparently a Ukrainian liveried F-16 has been photographed at a Danish Air Force base, and Denmark is actually one of the countries that has been conducting the training of F-16 pilots for Ukraine. What we see in this picture is a Ukrainian flag over the pilot's head, and also, this is something that I found to be a little odd. Just to get to the cut to the chase really quickly about the controversy that's been made about this picture. Some people have been saying that this Ukrainian flag and has been photoshopped onto his uniform, and the roundels in the background have been as well onto the F-16. My only problem with that is that obviously you don't even have to have a 100 level IQ to see that this is literally just a smaller version of this flag on this guy's face. Probably, and I feel like this is fairly common sense, that's probably his name tag right there for his last name, so they put a Ukrainian flag over it for OPSEC reasons, so that way you wouldn't know who this guy exactly was, or the Russians couldn't track the guy down through the picture. But another thing that's interesting is that we can see the Ukrainian Trident, much like it would be on an Su-27 or a MiG-29's vertical stabilizer, and we can also see a Ukrainian roundel right here. Now, some people have been saying that it's photoshopped, and I've seen a lot of argument being had about this on the internet. Apparently, if you put this thing into a reverse image searcher or whatever, a Photoshop, kind of like a Photoshop workshop or something like that, it's the best way to explain it. Apparently, this shows up here as the Ukrainian roundel and the Ukrainian Trident on the vertical stabilizer possibly being photoshopped into the picture. It is somewhat possible. I'm going to look into this a lot more because, of course, we want to be as accurate as possible with our reporting. But at the moment, from what we understand, this picture is most likely authentic. Still, I'm going to be looking into it a lot more because, to be honest with y'all, if people are going, this Ukrainian flag was photoshopped onto his uniform, so obviously the roundels were as well, that's a pretty lame argument to make, because anyone with eyeballs can see that this is literally the exact same Ukrainian flag emoji that they put over the guy's face. And I guess, you know, if you say that's Photoshop, then you're going to say this guy, believe it or not, doesn't have a Ukrainian flag for a face. There's actually a face under there, which, you know, duh, I think that's pretty obvious. But beyond that, it is very interesting to see something like this. And another thing that people have noted, and let me go pull this up, Dutch F-16, not Ukraine, we just want to find the Dutch F-16. But some people have been saying that that is where the Dutch Air Force roundel would be on a normal Dutch F-16. And looking at it, it seems as though, interestingly enough, trying to do a little bit of digging, and this seems to maybe put a little bit of a nail in the coffin, the Dutch Air Force roundel is not right there on Dutch F-16s. In fact, they don't even have a roundel on the front of the fuselage. So that's kind of putting a nail in the coffin that this is a Dutch F-16, because everyone was saying that the person who photoshopped this picture literally just took a Ukrainian roundel and then just placed it on top of the Dutch one. The problem is that none of these pictures, right here, right here, right here, or right here, there is a Dutch roundel on the front of the aircraft. In fact, it's actually near the rear of the fuselage on the upper side. So going off of that, it does seem to be the case that this is not a quick little Photoshop job. And we can also see back here that there is no Dutch Air Force roundel, or any kind of roundel for that matter, on the rear upper side of the fuselage. We can also see that on the actual top of the vertical stabilizer, there are no numbers, and there also is a Ukrainian trident as well. And a lot of people have been saying things about the markings on Dutch F-16s and why this is a Dutch F-16. And I'd have to be honest, I'm still believing that this is most likely an authentic picture, just to give the best analysis as possible. The roundel appears to be in the same kind of lighting conditions as the rest of the aircraft is, as well as the trident on the background. Not only that, it is going to be a Dutch F-16 after all. The Dutch are providing F-16s, and so what they would most likely do is just paint over the Dutch roundel and start painting Ukrainian roundels onto the F-16. It's going to be cheap and economical, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense to do anything otherwise. But nevertheless, we will be looking into this a little bit more and trying to figure out if it is photoshopped or not. To be honest with y'all, I'm fairly skeptical that it is photoshopped. I've seen some people saying that today, but I'll be entirely honest with y'all, just to be frank, because I've seen some people bringing up some names about who said it and acting like it's God's word. Those people have been wrong on things many times, and in fact told me I was wrong and then ended up being wrong themselves. Probably one of the most notable things I can tell y'all about the behind the scenes that one of the most notable people everyone's saying said it was a Photoshop today told me is that no way in hell would the United States ever give Ukraine an Abrams tank, and now the Ukrainians have 30 of them. So I wouldn't take their word, you know, for like, you know, as like granite. I would take it for what it is, and, you know, not just, you know, believe everything you hear and see, because
Take it as sand. Don't take it as granite.
yeah, take it for a grain of salt, because I'm going to be doing a little bit more looking into this and trying to figure out what this really is, whether it is a real picture or not. But nevertheless, we are going to be moving on from that little bit of news. Regardless whether it's accurate or not, it is great to know that the Ukrainians are still training on F-16s, and hopefully Ukraine will be getting them here within the near future. Moving on from that and on into Kyiv, we also got to see today that there was a very interesting thing that was done. And many of y'all will know that the chief of the armed forces just changed hands about yesterday, and General Valery Zaluzhny was replaced by Oleksandr Syrsky. Today we got to see that General Valery Zaluzhny, along with Budanov, who was the chief of Ukraine's intelligence forces, were both awarded the title Hero of Ukraine, as well as the medal that went along with it. This is a pretty solid move. I gotta say that it's nice to know that General Valery Zaluzhny has actually been recognized for his efforts as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, and we also saw that, at least on camera, it doesn't really seem like there was a lot of animosity in between General Valery Zaluzhny and Volodymyr Zelensky, possibly quashing the rumors that they weren't on good terms that had been spread around as a rumor, and we were kind of believing here on this channel as well. We may actually have been incorrect on that. We'll have to wait and see what the future may bring, or what the future holds in regards to that relation, and see if that was true or not. But nevertheless, we also got to see that apparently not only was the chief of the armed forces replaced, but we also got to hear that apparently there is a new assignment to the general staff. According to the Kyiv Independent, Volodymyr Zelensky has named Major General Anatoly Barhilovich as the new chief of the general staff for Ukraine's armed forces, according to what was said today by the president's office. This is another change in the Ukrainian upper leadership, and we're believing that at this point, it seems to be a shift in Ukrainian focus from frontline strategy more so to a refining of the logistical chain and also the training and combat readiness of Ukrainian armed forces. Trying to integrate new rotations, better logistical lines, and also not only that, increasing the overall training of all Ukrainian armed forces, trying to take a more quality than quantity focus. But what do you got to say real quick, Matthew?
You know, it's quite interesting that when people said that Zelensky was looking to basically have a government shakeup and start replacing a whole bunch of top-level people with new people to basically change the entire strategy of the war, I initially thought that maybe it was going to be a one swipe and then start replacing people immediately. But based on this, it looks like he's going to take a position at a time. He got rid of the commander-in-chief of the armed forces first, Zaluzhny, and then replaced him with a new guy. And then now he's gone and replaced the chief of staff as well. So maybe it's going to be a slow process of slowly replacing people over a few weeks instead of all at once where, you know, it might cause chaos.
Maybe so. I'm thinking that it may be a slow change, probably to make sure that there isn't too much chaos in the Ukrainian government switch up at a single time. But I would have to say, it is certainly pretty interesting to note that there are starting to be some really big high-level changes in the Ukrainian armed forces on who has been in charge. At this point, the Minister of Defense, the Chief of the Armed Forces, and also the Chief of the General Staff have all been replaced at least once over the course of this war. Of course, that's a far better running track record than the Russian army, which has had about 9 generals come in and out of the position of general of the Russian forces in Ukraine position. But nevertheless, it is showing that apparently the Ukrainians are trying to find a way to further hone or refine their armed forces, at least according to the public statements. But many people have been talking about the award that General Valery Zaluzhny was given today, the Hero of Ukraine, which is Ukraine's version of the Medal of Honor. And Matthew, do you think that that was an appropriate thing to give him that kind of an award?
So the audience believes overall in majority that it was a 100% well-deserved recognition. A small portion of people believe it was a peace offering for Zaluzhny and his way out, and even a smaller percentage think it's a mix of options 1 and 2, a mix of recognition and also a peace offering to sort of maintain the peace in the government of Ukraine. And in my honest opinion, I really think it's a mix of options 1 and 2. You know, it was really well-deserved recognition. Like, make no mistake, Zaluzhny is a hero of Ukraine, and that award is well-deserved for him. Also, by the way, I believe Budanov got it as well. I was just double-checking here on Twitter. And yes, he was awarded the title of Hero of Ukraine as well. So both Budanov and Zaluzhny got it. For Budanov, it was more of just a thing that Zelensky wanted to do because Budanov is going to be retaining his position as the intelligence chief of Ukraine. But for Zaluzhny, I think it was slightly a peace offering to sort of let him know that he was appreciated, he's not being let go of on bad terms, and to also hopefully smooth things over to a certain extent, so that way there's no rifts happening internally, politically, with the government. I think that was a wise thing to do, and also, you know, really to be honest, Zaluzhny deserved that award before now. And now the timing of it makes it look like a peace offering, which is kind of like a side effect of that, but it is well deserved. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree that I think it's well-deserved recognition. Zaluzhny has done an absolutely incredible job. And also, a lot of people corrected me on this today, and I had to go back through and look at it. But I said that Oleksandr Syrsky had not earned his title of Hero of Ukraine yet. Actually, he already had about a year ago, according to what I could find. So apparently, he's already been distinguished by the Ukrainian Armed Forces in President Zelensky for his actions conducting the Balaklia counteroffensive, as well as the defense of Bakhmut and the defense of Kyiv, being the general who was actually in charge of the ground forces in those areas. But beyond that, I think it is well-deserved recognition for General Valery Zaluzhny. While Oleksandr Syrsky was the commander of the ground forces in some of the most pivotal battles of the Ukrainian war, General Valery Zaluzhny was the guy overlooking everything. He was commanding every single general in every single front, in every single campaign, including Oleksandr Syrsky, and in my opinion, had done an absolutely incredible job keeping a handle on everything and managing it incredibly well. In the entire entire time that General Valery Zaluzhny was a chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, the Russians looked incompetent to the level of proficiency and professionalism that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to achieve in the matters of logistics, the matters of defense, and not only that, in the matters of offense. I would also have to say that considering that General Valery Zaluzhny was chief of the armed forces, he most likely was also the one responsible for appointing Oleksandr Sersky to his battle commands, for example, the defense of Kyiv, the Kharkiv counteroffensive, as well as the defense of Bakhmut, because that is usually a role to that is assigned to the commander-in-chief of the armed forces to try and select and move around generals to positions that they would be the best in. So going off of that, I would have to say that General Valery Zaluzhny certainly deserved that award because he was an amazing chief of the armed forces during his entire 2 years of being the commander-in-chief of the armed forces over the course of the entire war. He did an incredibly good job. But moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we only have two. The Russian casualty report, and also this very interesting video from the Russians showing them setting up a comm line. We've never actually seen footage of this before, and I wanted to show this to y'all to try and give y'all a good idea of how badly the Russians kind of are doing in some aspects. They're not kind of doing badly, they're doing really badly in most aspects. But one thing that is wild is watching them have to lay out communication lines, literal communication lines, because the wireless radios are pretty bad off. And not only that, every other form of communication is really bad off. So now they're having to literally lay down landlines to be able to communicate with forces around different parts of the battlefield. So I'm going to be showing y'all a little bit of this clip, because it's very insightful. When you see him with the wire spool here, winding it up so that way they can begin to lay it out here in a little bit.
То есть дали бухту, они ее сейчас перематывают на катушку, чтобы не конетелиться с этой бухтой где-то на поле или в посадке.
And these are the Russians, right?
These are the Russians. This is the Ruski army. You can see the some kind of a rip-off of the North Face logo on his baseball cap.
Oh my gosh, man! They love America so bad, but hate us at the same time. It's like a bad old girlfriend or something.
Dude, they hate us because they want to be us. That's the real answer, man.
Wouldn't that be a shame, though, if this communications line right here was accidentally mixed up with some det cord?
Oh, no.
Oh, that would suck.
And wait a minute.
They would send the message a whole different way.
What does this say right here? This says, Ulfin Karel V CAB. Looks like some kind of a slip giving the information. This is actually kind of a common thing, these sorts of slips in the Russian world. I actually have a few of them that have come out of ammo spam cans in the past, which is really interesting to look at because they are all literally identical in the way they lay out the information.
Кабель для связи делают вот здесь. Вот. Кто живет в Уфе, ставят Лойс. И вот по случаю хотелось бы обратиться к производителю. Блин, 21 век надо говорить.
They're gonna bungle this.
Вставляйте туда какие-нибудь картонные или бумажные втулки, чтобы это бухта не путалась.
It's like a pair of ear pods or some junk when you try to get them out and wear them. It's like they're all tangled up.
Yeah, and you know something else? Danny3648 in the chat said, that's technology from the 60s. I can beat that. This is actually technology from World War I and World War II, especially in World War I. In World War I, you actually had these specific guys in the Signal Corps, in the AEF and also the BEF, as well as the French Army, that would move up and down the trenches with spools like these, laying out pretty much telephone lines, so that way frontline commanders could call back to General HQ, which is wildly bizarre to think that the Russians' comm systems are so bad off, they're having to resort to pretty much 100-year-old technology to try and find something that is tried and true in the Russian military, because this is really what the Russian army is when you get down to its basic elements. It's a fairly archaic armed force with very little modern technology in between it.
Господа связисты, вы согласны?
Although, like some people were saying in the chat, though, even though it's archaic, it's very hard to tap this because, you know, it's literally a landline.
Well, that's true, but it's very easy to knock this out, too, because if an artillery shell lands anywhere near this thing and somehow cuts that wire, the entire comms chain is out at that point, completely gone. So while it is hard to tap, it's also very easy to knock out.
Я отделял медь от стальной проволоки. Для того, чтобы проволокой я смог сделать узел.
It looks like they're doing some splicing here, apparently.
То есть уже всё.
Someone's got mesothelioma in the background.
Обеспечить классную связь, Что мы делаем дальше? Берем вот один конец меди мы отводим.
And someone said, Tight Bake said, I'm disappointed you don't understand how efficient it is. Listen, dude, there's nothing efficient about this, because if it was efficient, why aren't we doing it in the U.S. military all the time? We do this in very rare instances in the U.S. military, and it's kind of like the fallback of all fallbacks. If nothing else works, we go to this. But this isn't something that you see as like our first line of defense communications-wise in the U.S. military. Why, yes, let's spend all of this time when we could be using wireless radios and communication systems to try and lay out wires in between frontline units. And then if they move from that position, screw your comms, because they're just not even there anymore. You have to be in a static location for this system to work. Or you have to lay an entire new line to wherever you went, and then that's going to take time. It's going to be inefficient, and you have absolutely no communication with that frontline force unless if you send a runner up to them, and then that could take a lot of time, and then that guy could get killed. It's wildly inefficient. And it's not something that you want as your first line of communication, which is what the Russians are doing in this clip.
И наматываем.
Also, if we have any telecom guys or people that know anything about wiring in the chat, like, let us know if these guys know what they're doing here, because to me it looks like they're kind of BSing their way through this, but I don't really know anything about wiring, so like I'd be curious to know.
Узла.
Узла, совершенно верно.
Она уже
Вокруг
не то же самое.
стального узла для обеспечения вот этого вот контактика, да, качественного соединения связи. Вот так это все у нас выглядит.
Вау.
Вот. И в другую сторону
Wow.
будет
Incredible.
то же самое.
What? Wait, did you just speak English?
Patronizing them. Yeah, he did.
You are incredible.
В другую сторону
You are
будет
incredible.
то же самое.
What the hell?
То есть здесь вот мы закончили.
И тогда будет очень хорошо.
It's
Oh, where'd the
amazing.
goblin
That was a
come from?
German.
Where'd the goblin come from, dude? He's he's pulling the wire. It's
Man,
like,
Joseph Goebbels just popped up on the scene.
То есть здесь вот мы закончили.
И тогда будет очень хорошо.
what the hell?
Man, that sounds like a German. What the hell's going on?
Ich in Kamerad.
Amazing.
Да. И теперь берем второй контакт.
The clown show in the comms unit.
Ну, их пусть. И обволакиваем в другую сторону.
It's so big.
Все.
Oh,
That's what Chris's mom said.
Это все, что я знаю из английского по фильму.
I'll be back.
Нет, это другие фильмы.
So, what the hell is going on here? They're just like throwing out lines. Someone just literally said in the background, "I'll be back," like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, or something.
Таким образом, вот у нас вот выглядит связанный правильный провод, который в дальнейшем мы заизолируем.
Oh my lord.
с помощью
We're going
изоляции.
to leave it here because for the rest of this is literally just them trying to splice the comm lines together and everything, and just random footage from their unit. But nevertheless, this is what the Signal Corps is up to in the Russian armed forces, and it looks like it's raw stupidity. I'm in an incorrect. But anyways, moving on from that, we got the Russian casualty report, and it is getting pretty high again.
oh, buddy, we got 4 Bobcats. Let's go. Let's
Hey,
go.
love to see it. 4 Bobcat skid steers knocked out in 24 hours. And I gotta say, pretty nice to see, but what's more important to see is that the Russian offensives are starting to bog down a pretty good bit. I would have to say that 910 Russian soldiers getting knocked out, along with 22 armored personnel carriers, 38 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 24 artillery pieces, 18 drones, 1 MLRS, and 1 cruise missile, along with the 4 special equipment vehicles, is kind of summing up to be a very bad day for the Russian armed forces, and a very good day for the Ukrainian defenders on really all battlefields at this point. It is starting to show that the Russians, once again, to try and create any kind of marginal success, have to expend voluminous amounts of soldiers and equipment to try and even move forward several meters. And we'll be getting to where they move forward today. It was literally about 15 yards, I believe, and this is about what it cost them across the entirety of the front line to advance a cumulative 15 yards over a single day. But beyond that, however, one thing that is very interesting to know is that Ukrainian defense is really the major contributor to why Russian casualties are so high, and also why they are able to make no advances for such high casualties. It's something that we know largely relies on a logistics focus on the Ukrainian armed forces in being able to provide a good deal of ammunition for the drone forces, the infantry, the artillery, and every other kind of force that's on the battlefield, the tanks, the armored personnel carriers, the armored cars, and such. it is a big deal for the Ukrainians to always be trying to focus on that. And the new commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, General Syrskyi, says that he's going to be focusing primarily on logistics, training, and proper force rotations on the front lines of Ukraine. And it appears that his focus, interestingly enough, is entirely on the back end of the Ukrainian armed forces. It doesn't appear that Syrskyi, like Zaluzhny, is focusing more so on Ukraine's frontline battle plans. It appears that Syrskyi is actually taking a higher level focus and trying to move into discussing and working towards improving Ukraine's logistics, really as a whole. Training and also frontline rotations is all kind of a part of logistics in a greater sense. And a lot of people have had some input on this and what they're thinking about it. To be honest with y'all, I actually think it's a very good move. But what do you think, Matthew?
So it looks like the majority of the audience believes that focusing on logistics and training is a promising and good focus by the new general. And then there's a smaller portion of people believes that it's too early to conclude anything based on that statement. And 15% said, where's his frontline strategy? And I must say that logistics and training is a very important part of the armed forces of Ukraine and any army for that fact. So I would say that's a very promising focus. However, it is notable to me that he really hasn't mentioned anything about his new or revised frontline strategy. He hasn't said if he's going to sort of keep it the same way it was or change it in any regard whatsoever. And I know he's got to sort of keep OPSEC in mind when he makes these statements publicly, but he could at least clue people in as to what he might be leaning toward. Even if he wants to try to misdirect people, he could at least say something on the matter. And he really hasn't said much of anything. So kind of interesting. And I wonder if his silence sort of indicates he's going to sort of keep it status quo the way that Zaluzhny was doing it on the front. I'd be very interested to see how that turns out. But certainly logistics is a very important aspect. And I think Zaluzhny focused on that to an extent, but not quite the way it sounds like Syrskyi is going to start putting a lot of his energy into it. So that's promising. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that focusing on logistics is something that is honestly the most boring thing in the military, but it's still the most important part of an armed forces operations is the logistical end of things. Many of y'all will know that at the beginning of this war, I had talked nothing but logistics, hardly at all about the actual frontline actions on a day-to-day basis. I more so talked about the great disparity in between the Russians' logistical abilities versus the Ukrainian logistical abilities. And we are starting to see that the Ukrainians are not only trying to hone and refine that even further, they're trying to make sure that the Russians are never able to catch up, no matter how they try and organize their logistics. We already know at the moment that technically the Ukrainians should have the upper hand against Russian forces when it comes to supply, because the Russians actually have outsourced their supply requirements to private companies. This is something that they've been doing ever since about the mid-2010s, and up until this day, we have not heard of a major Russian military change in that strategy, or more so, that doctrine for the supply. We have heard so far that sometimes companies of the Russian Federation that have been contracted to do this military supply work have actually refused to carry the supplies to the supply hubs in Ukraine because, quote unquote, the situation is dangerous and therefore we do not want to risk the lives or the sake of our employees or company property. And sometimes the equipment the supplies, as a matter of fact, just does not make it to the supply points because it's being run by private companies. And apparently, the Russian army's logistics core is also wildly small, and that's why they had to outsource a lot of it to private companies. That's not just something that they're doing within the Russian Federation. This is their strategy for supplies wherever the Russian army is, whether it be within their own borders in a defensive war or abroad like they are in Ukraine right now in an offensive war. So going off of that, I would have to say that the Ukrainians are already on a great footing compared to the Russians, but focusing on it even further and making sure to refine it, and not only that, increase the training of Ukrainian forces, thus hopefully reducing the need for excessive amounts of supply, and not only that, getting good rotations as well, which once again will help more units to always get more up-to-date training and also make sure to reduce fatigue. All of this sounds like it's trying to make the Ukrainian army a more lean running engine and make sure that it's able to keep trucking along for however long it may take for Ukraine to win this war. But still, it sounds like a fairly honest move. To be honest with y'all, I think that's actually a smart and solid move by the Ukrainian armed forces, and hopefully Oleksandr Syrskyi will be the guy to do that. He's been more of a frontline commander, actually, being I believe a lieutenant general up until his promotion to commander-in-chief.
Colonel General.
Colonel General. I've never heard of a Colonel General. But anyways, he was in charge of the defense of Kyiv, the Kharkiv counteroffensive, and the defense of Bakhmut, mostly focusing on the actual, more so tactical level of Ukrainian armed forces operations, not really the strategic level. So it's really interesting to hear that he's now taking a priority focus on that, considering that his expertise actually lies in the frontline fighting side of things more so. But moving on from that and down into our next little bit of news, which is actually over here in the northeastern area, we have one clip from this area. The Battle of Kupyansk is still going on, but most importantly, it appears like Ukrainian forces have been trying to target the Russians with indirect artillery fire and also drone attacks over the past day, trying to conserve their manpower, but also strike at those Russian forces. But Matthew, I think we have something pretty interesting to address from the live chat.
So we do. We have a very interesting comment from Ari Soini, who also throws in a $60 donation to go with it to help keep the channel running. And Ari, thank you very much for that very generous support. That is the largest super chat of the night. And as you know, Ari, this keeps the channel running, and it keeps us like PBS trucking along. And Ari says, do you think that the USA will eventually come to agree on continued Ukraine support?
I think that the U.S. will eventually come to an agreement on continued Ukraine support, but I can't really get into the details of that because right now that's become almost an entirely political discussion because they've tied the matter of national grand strategy, or really international grand strategy, into domestic affairs, which, to be honest, I don't really like the meshing of completely separate things into the same item on one's plate, but nevertheless, that's what's happened in America, so it's not really something that I can talk about freely, but I do believe that through time, there will be an agreement made. Of course, sadly, I can't really talk much more on it beyond that. I really want to. Do not get me wrong. I would love to talk about more about it. But sadly, it would be a very political issue if I tried to, even just to neutrally address it and try and come up with probably the quickest solution to get Ukraine support out the door. That still would probably be a pretty political topic to talk about at the moment because it's been entirely tied into domestic politics here in the United States, Ari. But nevertheless, I got to thank you and the Kiwi Wife and Finn for supporting this channel and helping it to keep running, because folks like y'all who support make it possible. And so thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have another super chat from Ari Soini, who puts in 20 this time. And thank you very much, Ari. And they said, here's 10. And it was actually turned into a 20. So combine another one with this one. And it said 2 for each minute of the 5. I forced myself to watch the Tucker interview and LSA. And man, I'm telling you what, you really do need to be basically paid to watch that. Like, forget paying the journalist for the interview. Like, forget that. You need to pay the audience for watching that and wasting their time on it, because it was a waste. And Putin definitely punked him, to put it in pretty frank language, actually. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be entirely honest. I hate to hear that you even watched it, Ari. I told you not to watch it. I didn't want anyone to watch it, actually, because after I got done watching it, I was like, y'all aren't going to get anything out of it. I didn't get anything out of it. There was nothing to get out of it for anyone. It was a complete waste of time for an interview. Also, Matthew, did you see the meme I reposted of the Twitter today where, like someone said, so why in the world is Russia invading Ukraine? And then it was that meme where it's like, you didn't have to cut me off. And then I went through
I saw that.
Dude, that was literally what the guy did. It was a waste. I cannot say it enough. That interview was a complete waste of time, got down to nothing. And it even pissed off, funnily enough, I've seen on the internet, it's even pissed off the pro-Russians that were just, like, frothing at the mouth for this interview to happen, because it didn't even get what they wanted it to achieve. It achieved nothing for nobody, and that was honestly the funniest thing I'd ever seen, is because everyone went from thinking on the pro-Russian side, man, Putin is a genius. And now I'm seeing Putin actually getting heat from pro-Russians. They're like, he had a moment to expose them all, and instead he talked about Varangia, and all that crap. I was laughing so much at that. But nevertheless, I hate to hear that you had to watch it, Ari, but nevertheless, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. I got to thank you so much, because we rely on support from the Lee Spring Army, and we always hope that people continue to support the channel. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you so much once again. And I think we're on to the last question, and then we're going to be moving right into the Frontline news.
And the last one goes to Chargy, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Chargy, for that support. And also, by the way, like, it is Charge or Chargy because the G is capitalized in your name, so it's throwing me off a little bit, so I'm not really sure. But they said, tonight I got to join you guys live, and there's no place I would rather be on a Friday night. And I'm telling you what, high praise right there. And he said, LLT, LSA. And also, take one from the chat, please.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And I like that. LLT, LSA. I guess that's long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much for that. And also, I'm so happy that you find no other place better to be than here on this channel on a Friday night. That means so much to me, Shargay, or Shargy, one or the other. And I gotta thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to keep it rolling, because folks like you make it possible. Of course, it's unbelievable to know that people like you enjoy it so much, and I hope people do, and I hope people appreciate it enough and want to see it keep running, like you do, Shargy, because you're helping me to keep this thing on air and helping me to make it possible. There are a lot of people, believe it or not, Russian bots, Iranian bots, Palestinian bots, hell, even some people, some really sick, weird people in the Ukraine war sector that would want to see this channel die. But every single time someone hits the like button, and every single time someone throws in a super chat, or supports this channel in any way whatsoever, y'all help to kindle the flames of the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer channel to keep it running and keep it alive for another day. And tonight, Shargy, you are adding a little bit of kindling to that fire. And I gotta thank you so much once again for doing that, and I gotta thank you so much for being a old guard of this Lee Spring Army and helping it to keep running. If y'all agree with that, put an LSA in the chat. And also, let's get a live chat.
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to Uncovered Cube, who says, do we have any more news on the support for Ukraine from America?
We do. That's a good question. I actually saw that one early on in like the 10-minute countdown. We do, and I'm going to cover this as neutrally as possible because this is what's going on right now. So, a bill has been made in the Senate that will provide tens of billions of dollars of support for Ukraine. But I believe at the exact same time, there are some domestic reforms that I'm not going to get into that have also been included in the bill, if I'm phrasing that correctly, Matthew.
You said there's been riders added onto the bill?
No, there was actually domestic issues inherently in the bill that were included with Ukraine support.
Oh yeah, that's called a rider. It's something that's not related to the bill itself, but they've sort of snuck it in there. But yeah, I believe that's the case.
So from what we understand, that has actually been met with a something like a 60-40 vote in the Senate, showing that it does have the majority approval. And now it's been moved down to the House of Representatives. So now we are waiting for the House of Representatives to have their vote. Hopefully we'll see that it's a majority vote. Apparently the Senate was actually happy with the bill. And then if it is voted on by the House of Representatives, and it has no modifications whatsoever to that bill, it will then be moved on to the office of the President of the United States, where it will then be given the stamp of approval. It will most likely be given the rubber stamp, considering that both the House and the Senate will have agreed to it. And then finally, for the first time in months, in theory, Ukraine support will resume in a very large form, actually, at its very start. From what I understand, there may be tens of billions of dollars in that support package. So going off of that, it does seem as though there is now some hope on the horizon that there may actually be support for Ukraine at the moment, because the vote did pass in the Senate. You know, not getting political, just talking about the governmental process a little bit here in America. It did pass the Senate, so if it passes the House, then it'll be sent to the President. The President will approve it, and then the support will flow, because then it has the approval of both of the branches that make that necessary, and then the Supreme Court's not involved at all. So hopefully that will be the case.
I've got hope for it. Like, you really can't predict it right now, but it looks like it's almost a 50-50 shot. It doesn't look really, you really can't say it's likely, but you can't really say it's unlikely either. So I would say we got pretty good hopes here, but, you know, you can't, really bank on it yet because, it is politics. People flip-flop, but hopefully everyone stops holding it up on all sides.
Hopefully so, because we've seen a lot of stuff going on here in America about Ukraine support because it was tied to something else, and then everyone, because because what the other thing is tied to, in a neutral sense, just to explain it really quickly, it's a very divisive domestic issue. Either you're completely for it or you're completely against it, and there's really no one in the middle at the moment on what's being added on to Ukraine. So they kind of meshed the two together, and because there was such a violent difference of opinion on the single domestic issue, and the Ukraine support was tied to it, no progress has been made at all because no one's wanting to give on that side of things. And so now we're starting to see that apparently both sides are starting to make compromises and give, which is what they're really supposed to be doing. And now it's starting to make a little bit of forward progress. So hopefully we'll see that the forward progress makes it all the way through to completion to the president's desk, and then we'll see the supports into Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat the best I can without touching on the political situation. And also, I have to ask everyone that y'all don't get into the politics. There's no reason at trying to throw mud or throw names at the folks that you believe are behind the reason why the support isn't going for Ukraine. I'm going to tell y'all, the only thing y'all do is make them dig in deeper and not want to support Ukraine. It's not a smart idea to attack people. It's a smarter idea to try and reason with them and find a way that y'all can both find some common ground for the support to go forward. Otherwise, we're just going to end up making sure that they never support Ukraine, and that roadblock may even grow if people are very violent against people who may just be middle of the road or even anti-Ukraine. We want to win these folks over. There is a way, and I've tried to explain this as many times as possible on the channel. There is actually a way that you can encourage these folks that believe it's not beneficial to support Ukraine that it actually is. There is a way to do it. You just have to explain it the right way in a mindset that they would understand. And that doesn't mean that it's a wrong mindset or it's a backwards mindset. It's just that they look at things different ways. Everyone in the country looks at things different ways. So you have to find out why everyone would want something to be the same, or why everyone will want to support the same thing for different reasons, and then argue those reasons to them, because that's one of the most important things ever. And of course, I have to go back really quickly to Shargi, who threw in that support. And I got to thank you so much for throwing in the super chat. We are, kind of a little concerned about support. And I got to thank you so much for throwing some in, because you're helping us to keep the channel rolling. And I hope that all kinds of folks in the Leaf Spring Army continue to help us to keep this thing rolling, because otherwise we may not always be able to make this thing possible. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on into the Kupyansk area, near the town of Vilshana, because we got to see today the Ukrainian forces were targeting the Russians with their artillery and drones. Here comes the Ukrainian drone coming on in, and we can see a Russian, what the hell is he running like down there, dude? He was going, la, 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 la. Just like, what the hell? La la la.
I think he's oh
blad. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that was a Shrike.
Oh my lord. I'm not lying. That's actually some pretty wild stuff right there. And when you see another FPV, oh my goodness, dude. The FPV drone pilots in this unit are like laser point accurate. Ooh. La 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 la. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, it didn't work well for him. And then we see the drone hovering around. And that's the end of the clip. But the drone unit in this area of the front line is not just going for vehicles or like a squad group. They're actually going for specific folks on the field. But moving on from that little bit of news up in the Kupyansk area and further down and into the direction of Kremenna, we got to see down here that the 1st Brigade has been operating within the Kremenna Forest, and we got to see a couple of pictures of them today that looked pretty nice. Here's our first one, and we can see here that this Ukrainian has an AKM or an AK-47, one or the other, and some pretty nice kit. We can also see the guy behind him has some similarly good kit. We can see them here in a bunker inside of a trench work in the area. From there, we can then see the same Ukrainian soldier later on in the Kremenna Forest with his AK-47 leaning against a tree. And then in the last picture, we can see that same guy walking through one of the trenches that's covered in a camouflage net. But nevertheless, I love to see that the Ukrainian 1st Division is in the area of Kremenna, along with the 12th Special Azov Brigade and the International Legion of Ukraine, continuing to try and defend against the Russian Spetsnaz and combined Russian forces that are trying to push through Kremenna and towards Torske. And it appears that they've still been unsuccessful as of today, showing that the Ukrainians are mounting a very effective defense. Moving on from that into the area of Avdiivka, we also got to see that the Ukrainians were dropping some drone bombs onto the Russian forces. And here's the clip. All right. Apparently we're watching a movie trailer. We're watching Get your ass beat 3. That's the return of the butt. But we can see the drone coming down.
Return
on
of
top
the butt.
Yeah, return of the butt.
Oh, damn.
And we see this Russian tank with a mine roller here coming to a stop. And we see the Ukrainians starting to drop bomblets onto it. It doesn't really look like these bomblets are going to be posing any serious threat to the tank, but it's certainly going to be freaking out the crew. And that one hit right on top of the commander's cupola. A nice little hit right there. And now you see another Russian tank moving through the area. You see the drone following it right over the road. And also, this is something very interesting to point out. The driver has his hatch open, and his head is stuck up above the actual armor. So he could have been a target. But nevertheless, we're moving on now to a BMP-2 that's been abandoned. And we can see them trying to drop a bomblet straight down the driver's hatch.
Oh. Oh, man, it was like pinball. Hole in one.
Engine bay is screwed. That one's out, no doubt.
Then it became an oven.
And we can now see them dropping a grenade into that tank's driver hatch and it exploding. We didn't get to see the rest of the vehicle's destruction.
These drone guys are getting deadly accurate. Like, dang, it even blew the hatch open.
Dang.
Or the hood, one or the other.
So they're dropping another bomblet. And we can see them just going around and just destroying BMP after BMP, an endless number of them. But we can see them here dropping 2 bomblets into the same BMP to knock it on out and start a fire. And we see the fire beginning to burn inside the BMP, and it may spread to the fuel tank soon. Hopefully it will. The explosion will be impressive if it does. And we see that it's started to reach the fuel tank because the black smoke's coming out, showing that it is fuel that's burning. And then they moved on to the next one. This appears to be a BMP. The same BMP from earlier. Now they're trying to set the engine on fire. We now see them dropping some bomblets onto the abandoned tanks in the area. We now see them trying to take out this BMP-2 a little bit more. And that's the
They're
end
like
of
experts at blowing the hoods open. Oh, look at this group of skeletons right here.
Man, they just a little happy group of skeletons, man. They just smiling. They loving life. But moving on from that, nice to see they were able to knock out so many Russian armored vehicles near the area of Avdiivka. But moving on from that and down into the Bakhmut direction, we have an interesting frontline update here over the past 24 hours. It does appear, as a matter of fact, that the Russians have actually been able to move forward a very small amount near the area of Hromove. We don't really know why this is the case. It looks like they moved into this forested belt line here, but beyond that, it is showing that the Russians are trying to make small movements in the area, and maybe Ukrainian forces have been moved to focus somewhere else. Nevertheless, hopefully Ukrainians can continue to hold their lines and defend this area as best as they possibly can. We did get to see, however, that a Russian BMD was destroyed in the village of Berkivka today by Ukrainian artillery. And here's the clip right here. And we're going to be muting that. We see this is being conducted by the 26th Brigade, which is now in the northern area of Bakhmut. When you see the Russian BMD right there, it appears from this distance to be a BMD-2. And we see them filling in the stock footage of the Ukrainian SPG firing. And we now see the artillery shell landing near the BMD, but not dead on top of it. And now we can see the hit slamming dead into the BMD and knocking it on out. We can now see the BMD continuing to roast and burn in the field. And that's the end of the clip, but showing the successful destruction of a BMD-4. Moving on from that and into the area of Klishkivka, a Russian BMP hit a mine in this area and ended up going sky high. We see the BMP rolling down the street towards Klishkivka. This was kind of like about a mile away, though, so it's not like the village is right under it in the video. And thank you, Walter A. Lakota. Thank you so much for that. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but we're greatly appreciative, and we thank you incredibly. Meanwhile, silence takes over. But we can see the BMP hitting the mine and going up. And that's the end of the clip, but showing the successful destruction of a BMP in the area. Moving on from that and behind the lines, we also got to see a pickup-mounted MLRS in this area as well. And these things are really... Oh, that's loud. But these things are really cool.
Hello there.
Oh, hello. He's like, we're about to be shooting it in a few seconds. And here we go. And he's got that crane operator remote control right there.
Uh-huh. He sure does.
And with that, that's the end of the clip. And wonderful to see them, of course, using their truck MLRSs. Moving on from that and down into the area of Zaitsevo, we also got to see that the Freedom of Russia Legion was hitting some Russian forces within that town with their artillery. Check this out. This is actually a really interesting clip. And apparently they got that trap plan as the Freedom of Russia Legion puts the Russians in a trap. I mean, you see that they spotted a 120mm mortar hidden under a tarp out there near this compound, and we now see the Freedom of Russia Legion firing off their own artillery in response. The first hit was dead on. The second hit was dead on. And we now see that the mortar's been uncovered, confirming it was a mortar. We now see the third hit going for the pretty much barracks for the Russian forces there, and we can see that apparently it set some ammunition inside the house on fire. And
that's pretty crappy looking barracks right here. It's like a car junkyard.
Well, it probably was a car junkyard at one point, and then they turned it into a barracks.
Oh, that can't be good for giving away your position.
I would assume not. Oh, that is like a smoke screen right there. Apparently, whatever is burning in that house outside of the ammo is burning quickly, because the amount of smoke it's giving off is crazy. Well, slow.
Slow, of course, slow.
Slow. But that's the end of the clip right there. But still, good to know that the Ukrainians are making, well, the Freedom of Russia Legion is making sure to hit the Russians in the area. But hey, you know something that is as good as hitting the Russians? Hitting the like button on this channel. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do a merciless plug like that, but it was a perfect moment. But moving on from that, and towards the city of New York, we got to see some American strikers in Ukrainian service. And these are those cool ones with the turrets mounted on top. Aren't they cool?
Yeah, they got this one low riding too. It's sagging in the back and everything. They've weighted that thing down.
Man, look how many of them there are. An impressive number.
Hey,
very
impressive.
I love to see the legions of tanks in this area. But nevertheless, beautiful to see. And with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news and even a little bit further on down and towards the Avdiivka battlefield. We got to see today that near the direction of Krasnoyarivka, there was an exclusive access given to United 24 to watch the HIMARS in operation. The American HIMARS. The one, the only, our beautiful, our beloved, the M142 HIMARS. Here is the clip.
So much to announce. Today we have a really exclusive access. It's a unit that many people have heard of or seen videos of, but a few have witnessed in real life. They operate a system that has changed the course of war in Ukraine at some point, and they continue to destroy targets on a strategical level. It's M142 HIMARS. Let's see how their work has changed after a year and a half of full-scale war.
I've been on HIMARS from the very beginning, since May 22. What has changed? This is war, and we take into account the enemy's tactics and how the enemy adapts. Right now, we simply cannot reach them, which means we need more long-range missiles.
What kind of missiles?
ATACMS, that's it.
Ukraine has been requesting more ATACMS systems that extend the reach of HIMARS up to 300 kilometers for a while now. A limited amount with 165 kilometers range provided by the US proved its worth, hitting a military airfield in temporarily occupied Berdyansk with the first shot. But the reason Russia has moved its logistical and command centers over 70 kilometers from the frontline are GMLRS, which are currently deployed on these HIMARS. They made a great contribution to the Kharkiv and Kherson counteroffensives in 2022 and have remained the most effective weapons on the battlefield since. Just imagine what their target hit rate might be.
We only count the missiles we have launched. As of now, we have fired more than 3,000. We know that there will always be a result because we work with precision.
That was cool.
3,000 missiles, and yet most of the time they are on the move and not shooting. The Ukrainian frontline is larger than these systems can cover, so their task is to be prepared to work anytime, anywhere. Now, what qualifies as a worthy target for HIMARS? As mentioned, it could range from an airfield to a dugout with a machine gun that poses a threat to the infantry. It's crucial to note that the target must be confirmed by at least two of the following: from the ground, sky, or satellite reconnaissance.
Although the Russian media state different from all the systems that were delivered to Ukraine, none have been destroyed, zero. And all that thanks to its high mobility. The enemy artillery just incapable to catch it in time.
Man, it looks mean
How does it
too.
feel to realize that you're
It
a very
does.
expensive target? I could say it's pretty cool. Even cooler when you realize that they can't do anything to you. Since we work via a strict protocol that can change at any time. In other words, we are not a standard unit. They are Soviet, standardized. Everything we strive not to be.
Make no mistake, the risk is still there. The enemy is always hunting for these systems, both on the front line and within Ukrainian-controlled territories. Generally, no pictures or videos of the systems are allowed. HIMARS units move in secrecy, and a separate unit is assigned to guard them.
Once the systems arrived in Ukraine, we took the unit under our protection, and since then, every day, 24/7, we have been with them. It's crucial to protect them because we have very few, and God forbid, if we lose one of these vehicles, it will have a significant impact.
Indeed, despite being too few, these systems have already become an integral part of Ukrainian artillery. While serving as a tool of destruction, they are also a symbol of support. But most importantly, one GMLRS keeps the spirits of Ukrainian infantry high all week.
The biggest gratitude comes from our brothers in arms. The army is vast, but everyone communicates and has friends and relatives in the military. The best thing is when you get a call that says, "Guys, you've done a great job. Thank you."
That's the end of that clip. That's it, 3D printer noises, but that's the end of that clip right there from United 24, showing us an exclusive access to one of the HIMARS batteries, and HIMARS have been operating heavily around the area of Avdiivka for quite some while. But moving on from that and into our next clip near Stepove, we also got to see a Bradley in the area. Of course, we've seen these many times, but it's beautiful to see an American M2A2 Bradley anywhere in the world, and it's wonderful to know that these M2A2 Bradleys are getting to stretch their legs in the direction of Avdiivka, like this one is with the 47th Brigade. But moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next clip, we also got to see a Ukrainian drone flying over downtown Donetsk. Check it out. This is actually, I believe it's called Donetsk Stadium in the middle of the city, and I'll be showing that to y'all here. Right there. There's the Donbass Arena. That's actually what it's called, and you can see the drone flying right over it. And that's the end of the clip. but really cool to see the Ukrainian drones pretty much have unmitigated reign over this part of the battlefield, and are even able to fly directly into the center of the city of Donetsk, which is the largest settlement that's near the front lines in Russian control. Moving on from that and past the area of Novomikhailivka, where we talked about the mutinying forces earlier on in the video, we're now moving all the way down here to the area of Zahirne, where we got to see one of the Challenger 2s that was a part of the 82nd Separate Air Assault Brigade. We can see it here during some recent training, but we located it to where the 82nd is kind of on the battlefield. Still, it's beautiful to see a Challenger 2 in service. These are a great main battle tank from the British Armed Forces, and wonderful to see them in action around here. Moving on from that and into the areas to Polve, we also got to see a lot of Neva getting destroyed as well. Of course, no real frontline changes were had in the entirety of the Zaporizhia front. It was more like just heavy frontline action, or more so moderate frontline action. But there goes the Neva, getting slammed right there, and that Neva is Neva more.
Man, that was their best model of Neva.
Man, that was their best model, a Lada.
Oh, yeah, I actually meant to say Lada. Oh my.
Oh my, some jelly.
It was a brake fluid.
Oh, jelly, of course.
The transmission fluid.
Of course it was. It would be ridiculous to be anything else. And that's the end of that clip. But pretty nice to see that the Ukrainians were able to make sure to take care of a lot of Neva. But we're going to be moving on from that. We're going to be moving on from the southern front, because I've saved one of the shockers of the night for last. A T-55 was knocked out today in the area of Kremki by Ukrainian fire. And the crew abandoned the tank where it was. Someone, either Russian or Ukrainian, took a picture of that tank today, and someone put together something that was honestly unbelievable. I'm going to be showing you all the picture of this knocked out T-55 right here. Notice something very interesting about this T-55. It has the number in bold 320 on the side of the turret. Okay, so I'm going to show y'all something else. And now y'all can kind of see it here in this picture, but I actually got the full-scale picture right here. This is from WarfareHistoryNetwork.com, and if we scroll all the way down, also, let me give you all a little bit of background. So in 1956, the country of Hungary, which is, you know, a pretty well-known country nowadays, actually revolted against the Warsaw Pact, and the the citizenry of Hungary wanted democratic elections and a democratically elected government. The Soviet Union crushed this rebellion with impunity, ended up killing hundreds of Hungarians, and ended up actually rolling in their armed forces in an invasion of Hungary. It was very shocking at the time, and really threw the world on its head, because nobody actually thought that the Soviet Union was going to do something like this. Not even nations in the Warsaw Pact thought that this was going to happen. But it did. You can see some pictures here from the revolution in Hungary and the Soviet invasion of Hungary. But what's most interesting is this picture right here. This is a column of T-55 main battle tanks that is rolling into the city of Budapest in 1956. And down here at the very bottom of the picture, the lead T-55 in this column is T-55 number 320. The T-55 that was destroyed near Kremki today was T-55 number 320. It was the very T-55 that was one of the first to enter the city of Hungary in 1956.
What?
Yeah, they are using a tank that was in operation in 1956 and was present during the Hungarian Revolution, and was actually a part of one of the Russian forces that put that revolution down. The Russians just lost this tank on the battlefield.
Well, that's the end of a legacy for them.
It is. It's the end of a legacy. Also, correction, this was actually lost apparently on May 8th of 2023, but this is the first time that anyone did some deep digging to find out that this T-55 in particular was in service nearly 70 years ago, in an entirely different conflict, in an entirely different invasion, by a country that no longer even exists. And the phantom of that nation just lost this tank today. That is, well, not today, but, you know, months ago, and we finally found out now that this was one of those tanks. But that is honestly unbelievable to think about. And this really does show how antique these tanks really are. Back when this tank rolled into Hungary, all cameras, and most cameras in the world, were still taking pictures in black and white. Of course, color film had come out around this time, but color film really wouldn't be common until about the 1970s, even here in the West. And throughout the course of the Soviet Union, color photography never really caught on at all. So it's just wild. It's insane to think about this, because being a huge history buff, it's nuts to see the exact same tank literally 70 years apart. One being in an invasion, and the other one also being, the same tank being in an invasion nearly 70 years later and being lost. Nuts. Absolutely insane. But moving on from that, and out of that interesting little fact finding that was made on Reddit today, of all places, which is really shocking and really cool. A huge shout out to whoever researched that. But moving on from that, it's time for us to take everything that we've talked about today in general and start to coalesce it into something that is a tradition every single day on this channel, where we listen to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці і українки. Головне за цей день. Сьогодні відзначив державними нагородами та, зокрема, хрестами бойових заслуг та орденами «Золота зірка» наших воїнів, солдатів, сержантів, офіцерів та генералів, героїв цієї війни, тих, хто вже зараз в історії нашої держави. Серед них підполковник Збройних сил України В'ячеслав Агеєв. Саме його підрозділ в травні 23-го року вперше знищив російську балістичну ціль, ракету, якою в Москві завжди хвалилися. Ніби ніхто не зможе її збити. Українці змогли. Званням Героя України відзначив генерала Валерія Залужного та генерал-лейтенанта Кирила Буданова. Вдячний кожному. І загалом від початку повномасштабної війни вже більше 70 тисяч воїнів з різних елементів Сил оборони та безпеки України відзначені державними нагородами. Це хоробрість, яка дає силу Україні. Сьогодні проводив наради із командуванням наших Сил оборони і безпеки України та міністром оборони Рустемом Умєровим. За результатами нарад, перше, провів заміну керівника Генерального штабу Збройних сил України. Я дякую генерал-лейтенанту Сергію Шапталі за службу протягом цих 2 років війни. Новим начальником Генштабу за пропозицією головкома Олександра Сирського призначив генерал-майора Анатолія Баргилевича. Досвідчена людина, розуміє завдання цієї війни та українські цілі. Сьогодні ж головком Сирський визначив кандидатури заступників, і я підпишу відповідні укази. Також визначені заступники начальника Генерального штабу. Всі хлопці бойові, фахові, кожен із чітким знанням фронту та реальних потреб українських воїнів. І дуже важливо, що головком разом з міністром оборони провів розмови із партнерами Німеччина, Франція, Сполучені Штати. Знаю, що все максимально детально, постачання, заповнення дефіцитів, снаряди, зброя. Провів сьогодні нараду з главою уряду Денисом Шмигалем. Під час поїздки в Кропивницький та регіональної наради там я дав завдання прем'єр-міністру оперативно опрацювати наявні в області критичні питання щодо стабільності постачання води, щодо роботи урановидобувних шахт і соціального захисту працівників, також безпекові питання, зокрема можливість обласної та місцевої влади купувати за власні кошти засоби РЕБ для прикриття інфраструктури. Цілком практичні питання, по кожному є доручення, будемо слідкувати за виконанням. Окрім цього, скоординували з прем'єр-міністром нашу роботу з партнерами щодо конфіскації російських активів. Продовжуємо спілкуватись на усіх рівнях і офіційному, і експертному та громадському, щоб пришвидшити всі необхідні рішення. На кожен прояв російської божевілля і терору, якими б вони не були, найкраща відповідь – це втрати для держави-терориста. Болісні, відчутні їхні втрати. Чим більше буде втрат у винуватця війни, тим ближчим зможемо зробити повернення миру. Справедливого миру та надійної безпеки. Сьогодні ж зустрівся із двопартійною делегацією конгресменів зі Сполучених Штатів на чолі з головою комітету Палати представників з питань розвідки. Поінформував про те, якою є ситуація на полі бою зараз, про критичні загрози і необхідність продовження підтримки нашої оборони. Обговорили передусім 3 питання. Необхідність підтримки цього року і нового американського пакету, який зараз все ще на обговоренні, критичне питання. також ППО, конкретно Петріотів. І третє, ключове питання – підкреслив важливість далекобійності нашої зброї, зокрема атакамсів на 300 кілометрів, щодо яких поки немає, на жаль, рішення. Ми цінуємо американське лідерство і його внесок у захист української незалежності і демократії від перших днів повномасштабної війни. Америка допомогла Україні вистояти у вирішальний момент. І зараз, у цьому році, час війни не став простішим. Виклики надзвичайні. І у Європі все більше лунає голосів щодо того, як у Кремлі готуються розширити агресію. Продовження американської підтримки потрібне. І я дякую усім нашим американським партнерам, які це усвідомлюють. Не можна допускати розповзання війни і російського зла. Путін тверезіє тільки тоді, коли бачить перед собою силу. Сила потрібна. Дякую всім, хто нашу силу збільшує. І ще одне. Сьогодні провів зустріч із членами Міжнародної робочої групи щодо екологічних наслідків війни. Це один із пунктів української формули миру. Пункт щодо протидії екоциду. Росія цією війною спричинила катастрофічну екологічну шкоду Україні та нашому Чорноморському регіоні. Це стосується усього від підриву Каховської гідроелектростанції до масштабного забруднення нашої землі мінами. Ми повинні вирішувати вже зараз і цю проблематику разом з усіма у світі, хто готовий допомагати. Жодного аспекту цієї війни не маємо залишити нашим дітям, жодних заморожених чи відкладених проблем. Все треба вирішувати. Я дякую всім, хто має достатню енергію та рішучість саме для того, щоб були рішення. Слава усім, хто б'ється і працює, щоб Україна перемогла. Слава усім, хто допомагає. Слава Україні!
And with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 716 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And that moves us on into our second segment, where we get to address everyone who's thrown in some questions, where we really get to talk to all of y'all about anything and everything y'all want to talk about. This is a free-for-all from this point forward. We can talk about the war in Ukraine. We can talk about literally anything. We could just joke around and have a lot of fun. But regardless, I hope y'all all stick with us through it, because it is always one of the funnest, well, actually it is, in my opinion, the funnest part of the night. But nevertheless, with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we did ask one more question to the audience, which we haven't gone over yet, and it says that only 300,000 of the 1 million mobilized Ukrainian soldiers are actually on the front line fighting, and Zelensky says there needs to be an audit. And what are your thoughts? And it looks like 35% said, isn't that just troop rotations? 25% said, not good, where are the men? And 23% said, more than an audit is needed in this situation. And, you know, to me, it sounds like maybe that's just normal troop rotations, because surely not all 1 million men are supposed to be on the front line at the exact same time, because that wouldn't really make much sense. So I'm not really sure what needs to be audited here. As long as they know where the mobilized men are physically at, that's all that really matters, because they can be put on the front line if needed, but I don't think you put all of them out there at the same time. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that does sound a little weird, because, you know, of course, the statistical thing is that about 1 in every 5 soldiers in a normal armed force is in a combatant role, or 1 in every 10. I think in America it's about 1 in every 10. But beyond that, it is pretty weird to believe that all 1 million of them should be on the front lines fighting. Maybe the rest of the Ukrainian citizenry, considering that it's martial law, are supposed to be the logistical force of the Ukrainian armed forces. I'm not exactly sure, but it is pretty interesting to hear that they're looking into that, because I don't really know why. Because for the Russians, they have approximately, at least from what we would believe on a pre-war number, 1 million man strong armed force, and out of that, only about 200,000 of them are actually involved in the war in Ukraine. So that's about 1 in every 5, or only about 20% of the Russian armed forces. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least from what I understand, or maybe we misunderstood what they said and they meant something different. Regardless, I hope that does address that well, and we are on into them questions. And so what do we got?
All right, so moving into our super chat questions, we have a $100 donation from Walter A. Lakota Jr., the longtime channel legend, and he is now the largest super chat of the night. So thank you very much, Walter, for doing a big one and still trying to buy more stock in the Enforcer channel. I'll tell you what. And he says, Aloha, the Enforcer Matt and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. And it seems Ukraine is now in a different gerent phase in this war. And I think it's good to have a new military commander because it'll bring a different tactics and overall strategy. And take one from the chat.
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Walter E. Lakota, coming in and helping to keep the channel running. Really coming in clutch tonight, and I got to thank you so much for that. And I hope that everyone in the Lee Spring Army always knows and recognizes that every single one of y'all's support is so important and helping the channel to keep running. And I thank you, Walter, for being one of those folks tonight and helping us keep this thing going. And so, hello to the OG Ellison Bosun, our, of course, merchant mariner, and not only that, our citizen Hawaii fun fact guy, who throws in some of the best fun facts about Hawaii I've ever heard, and really has taught me a lot more about Hawaii than I ever knew. But moving on from that and answering what you said as a comment, it does seem like Ukraine is moving into different phase of the war, and I think they're starting to get the idea, at least at the moment, this is not going to be a short war, it's going to be a long war, so we need to start refining those long war aspects of a war, the logistics, the training, and also the rotations to make sure the fatigue doesn't overcome the armed forces, and also poor management, or more so mediocre management will probably be the best way to explain it. I think that may be why they had the change in command, maybe a change of doctrine and overall strategy for the war, and I think it will bring those different tactics and strategy that both you and me are talking about. But nevertheless, I got to take a moment to thank you so much, Walter A. Lakota. Recently, support to the channel has been getting overall low, and it does concern Matthew and me because, you know, this is the only way we make a living running this channel is through support. And I gotta thank you for the incredibly massive support and in helping this channel to keep running, because it means a lot to us. We never want to ask viewers to support the channel and tell them to go out of their way. So when folks like you, Walter, and everyone tonight throws in their support, it really gives us a little bit of breathing room, because we go, thank the Lord, the channel will survive well into the future, hopefully, with everyone's continued support like yours, Walter. And so with that, let's get that live chat.
In the live chat, question goes to Heartless Fool, who says, Matt, have either of you heard that Russia has started using Starlink?
I have not heard about Russia using Starlink. Let me go pull up the Starlink operations map, Starlink map, or usage map.
I think I'd seen somewhere where someone had reported that allegedly Russia had gotten their hands on some Starlink units from a proxy country, but I don't think the sale was actually authorized to Russia itself.
So let's see here, Starlink availability map. Let's go around the world. So according to Starlink itself, the Starlink website, we have not seen Russia be added to the list of an available country. Ukraine is waitlisted, actually, according to according to the Starlink usage map. All of Europe has been approved. Really, all of the Americas have been approved, and it is available. But we're seeing that it has not been rolled out to China, North Korea, Iran, or Russia. And that appears to have some strategic implications behind it. And also, Matthew, notice Venezuela. It appears that the United States may have some direct impact on who it's available to, because notice that all of our national rivals, including even the minor ones like Cuba and Venezuela, are not getting access at all to the Starlink system.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And also, I'm not sure if they have the capability, which I'm sure they do, because we've seen it before in Ukraine. Even if there are satellites that can service places like Russia, they might be intentionally turning it off because of the reasons you stated, geopolitical reasons. But I really don't know that for certain, so, couldn't say.
And I would have to say, maybe so. But if Starlink isn't even providing to the geographical area of Russia, it would be pretty tough for them to probably even use it, because they probably wouldn't even be able to activate the Starlink systems where they are. So I'd have to say, at the moment, from my understanding of Starlink, probably not usable, and they're probably not using it. Or they were able to buy some and they attempted to use them, but they were unsuccessful in the attempt. Those would be my two guesses at the moment, because I would highly doubt that those kinds of systems would be able to get into the hands of the Russians, especially considering that it seems like all American rivals or national rivals have been completely barred from ever getting Starlink systems, at least according to this map. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again, Walter A. Lakota, for the massive support of the night, the largest super chat of the night, as a matter of fact, and helping this channel to keep on running and sponsoring a live chat, which is a great way to support the channel, and also pay it ahead and let us get to other folks' questions too. And thank you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a very generous $50 donation from Herbert Leda. And thank you very much, Herbert, for that support. That is also very generous of you. And I believe, let me double check, I believe that is their first ever super chat of the channel. It's got a big number 1 with the balloons next to it. So YouTube's telling us it is. And Herbert, welcome to the LSA, and also supporting the channel as well and helping to keep it running. He's buying stock at a crucial time in the channel's history. And he says, LSA, and you guys are great. And listen every night and keep it up.
And thank you so much for the support, Herbert Leda. And thank you for helping the channel to keep on running. Your first super chat ever. And I'm greatly appreciative for it. It means a lot. And thank you so much for saying that we're great. Honestly, I feel like we're never deserving of that praise, but I'm more than happy to accept. And I'm so happy to know that we're held in such high regard to so many of y'all. And also, we will make sure to keep it up. Your support is helping us to keep it up, because without y'all watching, without y'all hitting the like button, without y'all subscribing, without y'all supporting the channel through super chats, this channel would not be possible. It means a lot to us, and without the support through super chats, it wouldn't be possible. Sometimes it does actually get a little bit rough behind the channel, because regardless of what you hear, there is no safety net behind the channel. We do this as a living, and this is the only way we're able to keep doing this, is through viewer support. And I got to thank everyone for that, because y'all are always helping to make it possible. Every single person who supports, whether it be $1, whether it be 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, or 500, y'all are making this channel possible each and every step of the way. And I got to thank y'all for that. Ukraine needs support, but much like they need support, we need support, because of because if we can't pay rent, that's that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the massive support. Thank you for the kind words as well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation. And Panama, thank you very much for that support as well. And he says, oi! And one from the chat, please.
Oi! And we will get one from the chat. But thank you so much once again for the support. And Matthew, what do we got from the live chat?
And the live chat question is going to go to Jeff Veeder, who says, what types of boats are the Ukrainians using to cross the Dnipro? And the small and fast types, I'd assume.
Yes,
I would assume so, because that's a good quality to have in a boat when you're getting shot at, I gotta say.
Yes, it is the small and the fast type. We've seen them use everything from fishing boats to ribs to anything in between, but they're mostly kind of like in between the classification of a rib or a fishing boat from what we've seen. So I hope that helps with knowing a little bit. Actually, you might be able to see one of them right there. Yeah, there's one of them on the move right there in that satellite picture, but sadly, we don't really have a really good look at them, and there's been many different kinds. So there's no real fast and good answer to that. There's really just like a general idea. It's kind of like a rib fishing boat sort of a thing. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again, Panama Floyd, for the support and helping the channel to keep on rolling. You're helping to make this thing possible, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here tonight. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Bex Chitwood, who puts in a $20 donation and says LSA, along with John Gardner, who put in a 10 and said thank you. And also, John Scott said the exact same thing, along with Boy Kachina. And thank you very much, John, Boy, Bex, and also John as well for that very generous support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank all of y'all so much for being big fans of the LSA and helping this channel to keep on running. Huge shout out to Bix Chedwood, LSA, and Swallow Candy. And also a huge shout out to John Garner, who said thanks in force for Matt. And thank you so much, John Garner, for enjoying enough to help it to keep going. And also, huge shout out to
John Scott.
Hey, huge shout out to John Scott as well. I got to thank all of y'all once again for helping the channel to keep running. It means a lot to us, and we wouldn't be able to make it possible without y'all. I hate to say that so much, but we're of course hoping that people will continue to support the channel and help it to keep running. And I got to thank y'all so much for that, because y'all are helping to make it possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Boulder Boy, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you, good sir, for that support as well. And he says, I started watching on about day 40 or so, and keep up the good work.
And thank you so much, Boulder Boy, for being here for so long. You've been here since day 40. That means that on the 2nd year anniversary of the war, you'll have been here for 690 days. And I've got to thank you so much, Boulder Boy, for having been here for almost 680 days at this point, and enjoying the channel hopefully every single day of it. We've tried our best to make sure that this is interesting to watch, and not only that, helps to get the war news out to y'all in a good way. There are a lot of people out there who cover Ukraine war news, many of them, an endless amount of them in reality, but I am greatly appreciative to folks like you, Boulder Boy, who've chosen this channel as the one y'all want to watch and the one y'all enjoy. If it wasn't for folks like you who enjoyed this channel, I wouldn't feel the passion and the drive to make this thing possible. And not only that, your support helps me to make sure that I can keep focusing my passion and want to keep this channel running onto this. It means a lot to me, and I got to thank you so much once again, because you are a reason why the Enforcer channel is still running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, also known as Sarge, who puts in a $5 donation. This is after listening to Tuck Tuck and Poodler. I simply just looked at my wife and told her to break out something. What's that?
That's an alcoholic beverage.
Oh, okay. And he said I needed to forget what I just watched.
And thank you so much for the support, LSA Sergeant Figment, our IDF paratrooper from the 35th Airborne. Really cool, by the way. And also, good luck on jumping tomorrow. Jumping is it is inherently dangerous a little bit, so I hope that your chute deploys. I really, fingers crossed, I hope it does. And you make sure to stay safe as best you can, LSA Sergeant Figment. But beyond that, that was something I said as well. I actually said to my mom, because I walked out of my room, and my mom has her computer like right outside my room, and I walked out there and I was like, Mom, the Ukrainians just won this war, because that interview didn't mean a damn thing. And I literally said that to my mom, and it was a waste. And I know, like, it seems as though a lot of people were not wanting me to talk about it yesterday at all. Seems as though many people hadn't had time to watch it yet. But now that a lot of y'all have, because, of course everyone had to watch it and see what was in it, a lot of people have started to realize it was a complete waste. But I got to tell y'all something, a little bit of a personal anecdote of mine to add to what you just said, LSA Sergeant Figment, because I found this so laughable when I saw it. And I'm not going to let y'all know what I actually think of this person and what they say. I'm just going to tell y'all who it is, what he said, and why this single thing was stupid. So, Matthew, you already know what I'm about to talk about, right? The guy that, he commented on the thing, he commented on the tweet where the interview was and everything.
Oh, I think so.
Okay, so to tell all of y'all the story, I watched that interview. It went live, and as soon as it went live, I clicked on it and started watching it, because I had to make sure that we knew what it was throughout its entirety, so that way we could actually talk about it if we wanted to, or if we needed to. And so I looked down 20 minutes into the interview, into the comments section, and a certain guy that some of y'all may know, called Andrew Tate, had replied to this thing 20 minutes after it had gone live. And keep in mind, once it uploads, then you can start watching. You can't watch it before, and it's 2 hours and 7 minutes long. And Andrew Tate said in his tweet, I just watched this. Like pretty much referencing he watched the whole thing. And he said, Putin is like a grand chess master. It's like playing my dad in chess. He makes all of the moves, and before you know it, it's too late. And I was like, first off, there's no way in hell you watched a 2 hour long an interview in 20 minutes. Like that you can't even make me believe that, because I'm still sitting here watching it, and it's only 20 minutes in, and Putin is still on the false history lesson that he was telling. And I was like, why would you say something like that? It's like, you didn't even watch it, because after you watch it, no matter, like, I've seen people who were pro-Putin all the way watch this thing and go, this is stupid and a waste of time. And, like, people have been criticizing Putin for what he did in the interview. The pro-Russians have. And, like, it's like, if you're going to do something, at least don't make it obvious you didn't even watch most of it. I mean, the guy watched, like, 10% of it, and then he clicked off and made that comment and actually acted like he knew what he was talking about. Like, on stuff like that, like, I don't care what if you like the guy or not, that's just see-through as hell and fake. It's like, you have to actually watch the whole thing to know what he's saying, or else there's no point in even commenting about it, because you didn't even watch enough of it to know what he was saying. But anyways.
Also, like Tommy Tutok said, his dad must have sucked at chess. If he's comparing him to Putin, he must have.
Yeah, I mean, geez, I mean, I don't know what, that guy's dad did, but I know what he's doing in Romania, and it's not that hot. Like, it's like, that's a whole other thing. But beyond that, when I saw that, I literally did, like, a double take on the comment, and I hope a lot of y'all see why. It's not because I, like or dislike the guy, it's just because that's dumb and it's posing, because there's no way in hell you could even watch 2 hours of an interview in 20 minutes. It's literally possible due to the confines of reality, space, and time. So that was something I was like, what? And I was like, what the hell? Anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And LSA Sergeant Figment, I thank you so much for the support. I felt the exact same way, and when I saw that just even added more to the stupidity of the whole interview. Not saying, and I have to say this very clearly, because Andrew Tate is a political figure. I'm not going to tell y'all whether I like or dislike the guy, but regardless whether I like or dislike anyone, I will criticize people for BS, and that was just straight up BS to say what he said 20 minutes after it had been uploaded. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Andy L, who throws in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, Andy, for that support. And he says, I've been in the LSA since week 2, and he says, I love fried oryx.
Oryx? Interesting. Let's take a look.
Fried of all things, fried.
Well, this thing's beautiful. I never knew what these things were called my entire life.
What is it? I can't see it. Oh, there it is.
It's like a pronghorn deer mixed with kind of like a cow. Like it's actually
and zebra.
Yeah, kind of. It's really cool looking. It's beautiful. I like it.
It looks like it's got 2 TV antennas on top of his head.
Dude, this thing looks like it's communicating with the International Space Station. Like oh man, but I like it. It's really cool. And Andy L, you've got exquisite taste, because I have never eaten an oryx. Bless you, man. Goodness gracious. But I have never in my life eaten one of these things. I'd actually be curious what it tastes like. Because while it's cute and pretty looking, I bet you it tastes pretty good. And we're going to have to try this out someday. Apparently, they're an African mammal, because this one was pictured in Namibia. But nevertheless,
it looks like elk.
Kind of does. Matthew, one deer I actually want to eat, and I'll show it to you. Some people are gonna, what? You want to eat it? Yes, I do. I like eating them. But this thing, the American pronghorn deer.
What? Man, what's his name? They're saying, hello there.
But let me get you another better picture of this thing. Here's some more pictures of them.
They're fluffy. But I don't know about this one.
You don't know about this one? What do you mean you don't know about
that one?
Hang on, let me go get another picture. Here we go. How about that? Dude, this one looks dorky. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I don't know about this one. It doesn't seem like the brightest one on the block.
Dude, this one goes. That's the sound that one makes. Oh my goodness. Oh, here's the range of the pronghorn. You may actually recognize this, Matthew. We actually drove through some very pronghorn dominant areas in the United States.
Yeah, I don't think we saw any. We saw some the buffalo, but no pronghorn.
No, we did. We saw a pronghorn. Remember, we were driving out of Denver and we almost ran into one head on.
Are you sure that was a pronghorn?
Yeah, because it was standing on the side of the highway. Remember? We were like, oh my god, you're gonna hit it! And then it, like, literally just stopped right before it walked into the road and just watched us pass. And I was like, what the hell was that? So I had to go pulling up and researching this stuff, found out they're pronghorn. And that's what they're called. But still, really cool little deer. And after seeing one of these things, I was like, you know, they're cute, they're fluffy. However, what do they taste like? You know, like, I'm just a little curious, you know, get out a fork and a knife, maybe cut a little piece of this thing off, see what it tastes like, you know. But beyond that,
and also Andy L said they run wild in Texas and it tastes like elk.
Huh, I've never had elk. So we're gonna.
It's like chicken.
We're gonna, yeah, we're gonna have to expand our palate and try and figure out what all this stuff really tastes like. But beyond that, thank you so much, Andy L, for being an old guard of the Lee Spring Army, being here since week 2, and also supporting this channel so that way we can be here well into the future. Support like yours is so essential and so vital to helping the Lee Spring Army to keep running, and I thank you so much for being a part of the Lee Spring Army and helping the Enforcer to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, real quick, shout out to Alan Rice, who put in a £1 donation. That is his first ever super chat on the live stream. And I'll tell you what, a pound is not that heavy, actually, but it is heavy enough, and it will wear your arms out if you carry it long enough. So, Alan, thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you, Alan Rice, for that £1 super chat. Like I say, every single bit counts in running this channel. Of course, support to Ukraine is wildly important, and due to how things have been going, I used to always say supporting Ukraine is wildly important, but to be quite frank with everyone, if I keep saying that and the channel doesn't get support, we will not be around much longer to be able to say that Ukraine is important for support. So I got to thank folks like you for supporting the channel and helping it to keep running, because you're helping the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer channel to keep rolling. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Mark Puregrossi, who puts in a $20 donation. And Mark says, Marmot. Hello, you, and love you guys. And thank you very much, Mark, likewise.
And 1 second, we have to pull up the Marmot. 1 second, let me go grab it. Here we go, it's coming around. Oh, hello there. Would you like a plum? And
would you like some rock? Would you like this nice rock right here? We're selling it by the pound.
Can I have some rock?
I'm selling it £20 a gram. What you want? Oh wait, damn it! What do you want, Governor?
I'll take £3 of rock.
Very well then. Hand it over, yeah? It's £60.
You want £3 rock? Make sure you have all the money on you. We don't take credit here. We take cash. That's right, hard cash.
Dude, you know what this thing looks like? It looks like you're the drug dealer. And it's like, so who ordered like 3 ounces of cocaine? Oh, I did. It's got like a mouth open like that. It's like, oh, that's me. But nevertheless, I gotta say, I love the Marmot. Mark, I love that you love the Marmot. And it is Marmot time. And I thank you so much for supporting the channel so that way we can throw in a moment of Marmot time. Because there is just not enough Marmot time in this world.
What do we say to Mark for throwing in support to the channel?
Thank you, Governor. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. I hope you enjoyed this moment of Marmot. And you know what? I'll keep it up during the next Super Chat. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw Panama Floyd saying in the live chat, I never noticed the bug before. And is that a tick? That's not a tick, actually. I think it's a housefly. Or at least what they were supposed to represent as a housefly. I think it's got too many legs. And also there's too spread out or something. But it's a housefly, I think.
Dude, that thing is a spider fly mix. It's like it's gonna suck your blood and also vomit on your burger at the same time. So wild, bizarre, as a matter of fact. But it is a fly. It looks like it's supposed to be a fly because of the big eyes and everything. Apparently, this guy stared at flies a lot because he was like, "Oh, you know what would be great? When I draw up this painting of this marmot creature that we saw in British Canada, French Canada at the time, yes, dubiously. I'm actually going to paint this little housefly down here for the hell of it because I'm a little bored. Yes." Why the hell would you do that?
Why'd you paint my tail so lumpy? Could you done my tail a little bit more fluff? Man, why does it look like that? Why does it look like that though? It looks a little weird.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, man. I wouldn't want to find this thing in a dark alley at night. I feel like you might have a little R. Kelly happen to you. Like, that kind of a tail.
The tail is thick.
Oh man. Would you like some tail? Oh man, dude, there's too much fun to be had with the marmot. I'm not gonna lie, it's a funny animal. But in reality, they're not actually that. Oh dang it, I clicked off. Let me go pull it up on.
Oh man, marmot.
Let me go pull up a real marmot because they're actually really cute. This is what a real marmot is. They're groundhogs. So.
Oh damn, that painting didn't do it any justice whatsoever. That was like an insult.
Yeah, I mean they're cute. Look at.
Whoa,
them.
Is that a picture of a marmot getting attacked by a wolf?
Yeah.
Oh my god, man, that's brutal to post that to the internet like that.
Dude, that's
It's
hardcore.
Oh my, it's a wolf. Oh dear. Man, that's crazy.
Dude, this thing looks like it was completely caught off guard. They went, whoa.
Wait, look at the headline. It says they killed their own parents, children, and neighbors. Now life's even worse for the vicious alpine marmot. Man, these things are bastards, really.
But
damn.
Look, this
and also it's a wimp too. Look at it.
But look, this was giving hugs to its children.
Man, but they'll kill it later, according to the headline. Like, that was a hit piece, that article was a minute ago.
Dude, oh my god, dude, this one is the one that's selling the rock. This one is the one.
Rock?
Dude, this one's got a redneck accent, though. It's like, hi there, you want some rock?
It does. You got that tire on you? Put the tire on my truck and also give me that rock.
Dude, look at this one. This one's going, I went down to the corner store and I got a quart of oil for my car. I've been damned, I also got this hot dog right here that I'm eating in my hands. I got it from this weird guy who looked like he was a cocaine addict or something, but nevertheless, it's kind of bad. I don't really like this hot dog. Tastes a little musty. But anyways, dude, there's a lot of interesting pictures of this animal. Like, a lot more than I thought there would be. Like, we looked at that goofy painting for so long. This is like a, oh goodness, that was a bad taxidermy dish. Dude, are those toothpicks coming out of its mouth? Dude, this is bad.
Oh, dear.
Oh, that's cute.
Man, whoever did that needs to be fired. I'm telling you. There's no coming back from that.
Dude, this one sits there and goes, I thought you was a nice guy, but you really just a rat piece. Dude, oh my lord. Dude, it gets better.
Goodness.
It gets better. This one, throwing it back. This one, let's see, what else? That one's just kind of cute. But
it's kind of like a weasel,
bro. You trying to get you trying to get blasted? But let's see here, dude. This is gold, comedy gold. Let's see here. Wait, dude, this one looks like the British marmot. It's like, are you from the same pub?
Yeah, you're not gonna sell me that rock.
Dude, this one's contemplating life. It's like, ought to jump. Ought to do it.
Oh man, yeah, it's right there next to the cliff. That's not good.
Dude, this one's the one that went and bought some rock, but it ended up getting plaster. It's on the ledge.
No, this thing's just waiting for a Disney producer to walk by and swipe it right off the side.
Dude, Walt Disney's executive producer is like, throwing this thing off of a cliff edge would be good for film.
Yeah. So they're going, damn, how'd I get this predicament?
Dude,
producer's saying right there, come on, line them up, that's right. Look a little away from the camera, that's right. Just hold still.
Dude, Disney's executive producer, it's like, okay, just angle the camera down a little bit where my feet are out of shot. Thanks. Just starts flinging hamsters into water for the drown. He's just like, you know what the hell with it? We got to make a nature documentary and make it interesting. Just start flinging hamsters into water. But what the hell's up with this one?
Oh, I said, Ree!
Dude, this thing looks like it's posting up. I'm not gonna lie, I like with the arms the way it is. Oh man, dude, I'm not gonna lie, they're cute, but they're also weird. But I gotta say that it's beyond everything that we're looking at here on these marmots. And let me go back through all the all the pictures that we clicked on. Let me go to the Wikipedia page here, and let's go back to that painting. That looks nothing like it. at all.
No, this looks like some kind of like mutant or something. Like, I don't even know what this is, a nutria.
Dude, this thing, it's not a marmot. It's like a giant rat. It's like this guy, like, it's like someone told him, like, hey, you need to paint up a picture for the French royalty of what this thing looks like, but you've never seen one before in your life. So you just draw it off a description, and then you just draw it as this giant rat. Like, it's not even a marmot at all. It's just a rat. Like, this thing actually looks like it's gonna go, hey, capiche, you know what I mean? I'm up here in New York. I'm in the Bronx in the subway fighting your girl for some sandwich. You know, it looks like, doesn't even look like, it does
Fighting
not
your
look.
girl from some sandwich.
Yeah, for some sandwich, you know,
hell?
like normal New Yorkers do. You know, you fight in the subway for the sandwich, you know? But nevertheless, thank you so much for the support. I hope you've enjoyed our little look around on this marmot. And also everyone's saying it's from 1605. That is true, but that kind of backs up my idea that this painter probably never even saw a marmot before he painted this thing. That's what I'm thinking, because the chances that this guy saw one in real life to paint it like this are slim to none. And let me go see marmot paintings. Let me see if there are more paintings of marmots. Sadly, I think I'd have to go to some historical archives to find more paintings from this time period. But I don't think marmots ever looked like this. Because the amount of inbreeding that would be needed with a marmot to look like this, I'm doubting it. I'm really doubting it. But still, I gotta thank you so much for the support and throwing in a little moment for us to get to the marmot, because without folks like you supporting the channel to, you know, talk about these little marmots, Mark, we wouldn't be able to bust out laughing, to the point that my cheeks hurt from laughing so much at the silly little goose. And so with that...
But wait, Mark Grocery's not done. He throws in a 20 once again. He says, stop, you're killing me. Stop.
You're taking my life! But still, stop! You're killing me. And I am killing myself. I am, actually. But I gotta thank you for the support, Mark. Both times, both to start this and both to end it, because you have made this channel possible, and you're helping us to keep this thing running. And while this isn't about Ukraine, I'm so happy that you were able to enjoy this and get a laugh with everyone else, because the chat was going wild. Everyone was getting a huge kick out of this whole marmot thing, and I love that we can all gather around and enjoy this marmot and share these moments together. And of course, thanks to your support, helping us to stay on air and keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, Mark, and thank you both times. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Scott Kemp, who puts in a 10 and says, thanks, guys, and you're so much more rested and entertaining. I gotta tell you what, Scott, we are more well-rested. I gotta tell you, it's nice being well-rested and not sleep-deprived all the time. But thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much, Scott, for the support as well and helping this thing to keep rolling. We 100% sound way better rested, because it was tough in law school and doing this YouTube channel. And we both ended up making the executive decision to drop out of law school and start doing this full time. I have been so happy to make that decision, and I'm so happy to know that so many people really do enjoy what we do, find it to be entertaining, find it to be informational, and want to see us succeed in this and keep on doing it. Your support, Scott, is helping to make that possible. I know I'm saying that to everyone every night, but I want y'all to know how important it really is. You know, and not making any qualms about it, we couldn't keep the channel running without super chat support, because we don't get supported any other way on the channel. So I got to thank you so much for enjoying that we sound well rested and helping to support this channel, so that way we can keep making this thing a reality. Thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Neil Vizanot, who puts in a 5 and says, do you think the Russians are having so many factory problems is because all the good workers were drafted into the military?
I think they're having these problems just because the Russian military industry is actually starting to do something for once in a long time, and they're actually doing it with probably some strict production quotas or schedules. That would be my honest opinion, at least to me, because the Russian factory workers, there has been enough Russians taken out of Russia to fight in the war in Ukraine in reality to actually have this kind of a severe impact on their industry. So in my opinion, probably the fact that they're just simply having to actually meet quotas and work. And the more that people are actually working in these factories at a higher volume, the higher the chances for an accident, considering the lax kind of protocols and guidelines they have for people working in such dangerous factories like these. But with that, thank you once again for support, Neil. I hope I addressed that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Opus, who puts in a 5 and says Sweden has the same system to lay out landlines.
And I thank you for the support. And that is true. Every country has a system like that to lay out landlines. But the fact of the matter is that is supposed to be one of the last resorts. That's not supposed to be something that you're using as your primary form of communication. That's if everything else has failed or cannot operate for some reason, then you start laying out landlines. And there is so much vulnerability to landlines. That's why nobody uses that as their primary form of communication. Hell, even by World War II, landlines were considered to be more for static positions or kind of as a last resort options. Wireless radios, even by World War II's time in history, were more sought after. And America, famously, because America was really the forefront leader of wireless radio technology in World War II, we invented something that has kind of stuck around in name form, at least, to this day. And I'll be trying to pull this up for y'all. The SCR 536, which, Matthew, you're not going to believe it, this thing actually came up with a term that everyone in America knows to this day. You know what it is?
What's that?
The walkie-talkie.
The walkie-talkie.
This was the original walkie-talkie. It was called a handy-talkie originally, but it would evolve into walkie-talkie over time. But that is the original walkie-talkie right there, and one of the first wireless radio systems that were commonly issued really in any armed force around the world. The Germans would mount wireless radio systems into all of their tanks, and that's what actually led to the German armor being far more effective against the Soviet Union and Poland, because Poland and the Soviet Union did not have any kind of common wireless communication system within their tanks. The U.S. military.
Man, this is when they used to say, instead of get them on the phone, they used to say get them on the horn. This is what they were talking about.
Dude, really? I mean, like, this thing is this thing is a literal brick. But what's really cool about this thing is that the U.S. military was actually one of the first in the world to commonly implement smaller portable handheld radio systems into infantry units. And that was what really led to a lot more efficiency for the U.S. Armed Forces as a whole, because communication was sped up so much and so much more efficient due to these radio systems. And from what we know, especially compared to other World War II radio systems at the time used by the British, the Germans, the Soviet Union, or Japan, which really didn't have any, these were much more reliable and more efficient than really any of the others. The British, throughout most of the war, actually had a problem with their radio systems because due to some of the internal components that were a little bit fragile, they had a pretty good chance of breaking down before they were even used. So this thing was actually fairly good and kind of led to really the concept of actually having wireless radios around being a necessity and a great thing in modern warfare. But once again, even all the way back to this point in history, the landlines, while yes, it stops you from being listened in on, they're still more cumbersome. They're more for static positions that aren't moving, and also, on top of that, they're also easy to destroy. It's really hard to knock out a walkie-talkie like this, or really a wireless radio, unless if you were to actually destroy it through physical means by shooting at it or hitting it, or if you were to actually kill the operator carrying the radio. That's really the only way you can knock this thing out of service. But with a landline, you could just simply knock it out even without knowing by just having an artillery shell land near where the landline may be laying on the ground, and then it's cut. And that's it. You have to go out there and try and figure out where it was cut, splice it back together, and pray that it will continue to work and nothing will happen to it. And that's a big drawback to these kinds of landline systems. Now, you are correct, though. They are in every armed force in the world, but once again, the last resort, not something that you would want to use as your forefront communication system like the Russians were having to do in that clip. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well, but I hope that does give a little bit of history as well as to why I derived that kind of a usage of a system. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Neil Vizanot, who puts in a 10 and says, playing a historical war game, I found a new weapon I didn't know of. And do you know what quicklime shells are?
I know a little bit about the quicklime shells, and let me make sure that I pull them up, because from what I understand, they would like spew hot quicklime over people. It was like a incendiary quicklime shell. And let me go. Let's see. Let's see here. Calcium oxide, lime from shells. So what I'm finding here online. And I'm guessing, Neil, that you must be playing Empire Total War or Napoleon Total War, because I think this is where I remember it from as well. But quicklime, according to the description here, is it showers the target with quicklime, which causes burns and blindness. So it kind of is one of the first, I would say, like proto-incendiary weapons of a modern variety, because, you know, there was such things as Greek fire and all kinds of stuff like that throughout the past, and flaming arrows and everything. But quicklime shells were like one of the first proto-incendiaries that was used in modern times. I think it was actually very rarely used, because quicklime has to kind of be slacked with water to be usable like that, so you have to be kind of a little bit precarious with how to handle that, and also to make sure that you don't wet the powder and everything that's inside the cannon, and make sure they can still fire. But beyond that, that is what quicklime is. So I would say that in a game like Empire Total War and Napoleon Total War, which probably isn't going to be factoring in on that level of detail a failure rate for quicklime shells, I would use it in that game, because it probably will end up being pretty effective as far as taking out infantry units, which, you know, in the era of line battles when quicklime was being used, that's really all you're going up against, rather than the cavalry. And of course, with cavalry, if they're getting close, transition the cannons from firing solid or quicklime to grape shot, and then just obliterate the cavalry formation at close range with grape. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, Neil, and thank you so much once again for support. I hope that was the game you're playing, and I'm looking through the chat and seeing if you said anything about that. I haven't seen you say anything about it yet, but if that is the game you're playing, have fun. It's a very fun game. I really love Napoleon Total War more so than Empire, because I'm a real Napoleonic War fan, but nevertheless, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a 5 from Ari Sowini yet again, and this time, no comment. But Ari, thank you very much for being very generous tonight and supporting the channel very much. I have seen your comments in there, and it means a lot to know that you care very deeply about the channel keep running, and we appreciate it very much. And we also have a $5 super chat from Carl yet again. He says, a shout out to all that Australians out there and LSA, and great show tonight, guys.
And thank you so much, Carl, for being one of those people tonight. A huge shout out to all of our Australians as well. The Australians are truly an incredible group on this channel. One of the largest divisions of the Lee Spring Army by size. And not only that, probably one of the most active in the live chat as well, outside of America and Canada. It is so cool to know that they're always here with us. And it's great to know, Carl, that you want to give a shout out to them. And so thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Samantha Owen, who puts in a 5 and says, I love the format of the LSA news.
And I thank you so much for that. And thank you for the support. I love to know that people are enjoying it. Our videos have been doing wildly well. They've been doing absolutely incredible. Today's short war news segment ended up getting, at this point, about 105,000 views, which is truly unbelievable. It's absolutely incredible. And I love to know that so many people have been enjoying our return to short form. It means a great deal to both Matthew and me, and we hope that y'all continue to enjoy it. And I thank you so much for supporting us, Samantha Owen, because you're helping to make projects like those possible. If it wasn't for viewer support, we wouldn't be able to do those and run this stream. And so thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that, we're jumping into our live chat questions of the night. And our first one is going to go to Viosta, who says, did you hear about the F-18 that was in your post today, had photoshopped Ukrainian emblems on it, and some other people were talking about they found out?
So I did hear about that. That's actually been something that's been brought up to me multiple times today. Here's what I gotta say. I'm gonna be, since we're kind of late in the stream, I'm gonna be quite frank. the people who have been saying that this thing is photoshopped have given me enough credence in the past to lead me to believe they mostly don't know what they're talking about on almost every angle. And I don't mean that to try and put them down. I don't mean that to be like arrogant or a narcissist and believe like and think we are the only people who can even be right at all. But I've actually had personal experience dealing with some of these people and talking to them, and they are very arrogant, and they have shot us down several times before on very common sense statements and acted like we were wrong, only to be proven wrong themselves just 2 weeks after they made those statements, and acted like we were stupid for even suggesting that that would be the case. For that reason, I'm not really one to be inclined to believe anything that those folks say as far as Photoshop. I have seen some people showing that apparently in some kind of like a Photoshop system that shows you if something is Photoshopped, it shows that this Ukrainian flag was Photoshopped on, as well as this one, which obviously that's the case. And then it shows that possibly the Ukrainian roundel and trident were also Photoshopped on as well. The problem with that is that this roundel is actually curving a little bit. It's not a perfect circle, as you can see here. It would have to be a pretty damn good fake, because it's not like this was like some quick little throw on. They actually made sure that the roundel here contoured with the fuselage, and you can notice that here a little bit on its top left side. The lighting is also identical on the roundel as to the rest of the jet. It's a pretty dull lighting, as well as the trident, which also is angled correctly. It's also got the same kind of shading. So if this is a Photoshop job, it's a pretty damn good one. And the other problem is that the people, from what I've heard, and of course I haven't really been able to watch a lot of it, but the people who said that this flag here was photoshopped on and thus the rest of the picture is photoshopped on, and that's like their main argument point to say that this is proof that there was Photoshop, you would have to be a literal idiot to believe that this is not Photoshop or this wasn't thrown onto the picture in an edit. I mean, it's literally the same Ukrainian flag emoji that was put onto the picture to cover this guy's face. It's covering his name tag. You know, it's not like they're trying to make this guy look like a Ukrainian pilot. They used a Ukrainian flag emoji to cover up his name tag so that for OPSEC reasons. So that was a really weird thing to try and point out that I've seen some people say. That look, they put a Ukrainian flag on his uniform to make him look like a Ukrainian pilot, but he's actually not. It's like, how could you not tell that's an emoji? You can literally tell it from here. But in the background, that's much more difficult to see. And another thing that's also interesting is that there are no numbers present on the vertical stabilizer on the F-16, possibly showing that maybe this is a real paint job, and they painted over the Dutch numbers that were on that tail section, so that way when this F-16 gets sent to Ukraine, the Ukrainians can then paint their own numbering system onto this F-16, so that way they can account for it properly. That may be what they're doing, and that looks like that would kind of be the case. Of course, I'm not saying that it is not a Photoshop at this point, because so many people have brought it up, and I'm still trying to look into it off air, and that's why I also brought that up as a disclaimer in the middle of the show tonight. But one thing I will say is that the argument that this Ukrainian flag is a Photoshop, therefore these roundels in the background are Photoshops, that is a lame argument for the reasons I just listed out a moment ago. But I'm gonna say this: while I say that I wouldn't trust people for face value, don't trust me at face value either. The same goes for us. Y'all shouldn't believe everything we say. You know, we've gotten a good amount of stuff right. We got the Votkinsk explosion apparently correct according to the British MOD, just as one of the latest examples. But that does not mean we are always right. We have been wrong in the past, and we could be entirely wrong now, and this could in fact be a Photoshop. But my honest inclination is to believe that this is in fact a real picture, with Ukrainian flags put over the nameplate and the face of the pilot, but the roundels on the aircraft are most likely authentic. At least from what I can tell, and from my own deductive reasoning, that's what I would think. And also, if we're saying that these are fake, who's to say that the people who put this thing into a Photoshop detector aren't faking the Photoshop readings? Who's to say that? You know, because we're questioning that everything's fake. Who's to say that that's not fake, and that's the Russians trying to push a propaganda spin to piss off the pro-Ukraine community? Because, you know, if it's a case that these roundels are fake, it may piss off the pro-Ukraine community that the F-16s are still not making it, and they're still not close to making it, and this picture was nothing more than a fabrication to bring hopes up. That could be another thing that's in the equation that nobody knows for sure. So You know, just throwing that out there as an idea because no one's brought that up before. So, you know, that would be my take, but take it as a grain of salt because, you know, I'm not always right on everything and I could be wrong here. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a super chat. This one's from Neil Visnot once again, who puts in a 2 and says ETW and dominating.
And let's see. And I had to find it because I thought you were talking about being Canada's. But thank you so much for support, Neil, and ETW and dominating. And good to hear, Neil, and I love to hear that it is Empire Total War, because it is a fun game. I wonder, I'm curious, what country are you playing, Neil? Because that would be pretty cool to know what country you're playing. Because I remember when I used to play Empire Total War, I always played like the British, or I played the Prussians, really because I was like a big ground force person. I mean, while the British are bigger in the Navy's sphere, I really like the British Army a good deal. But still, thank you for the support. I hope you have fun dominating whatever country you're playing. I bet you're killing it, Jerry, killing it. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Made in Canada 182, who puts in a 5 Canadian and says, just saying hi. And I appreciate the midday updates and keep them coming. And take one from the chat, please.
And thank you so much, Made in Canada, for enjoying those midday updates. We are going to keep them coming, and thanks to your support, the Enforcer is able to keep rolling. And let's make sure to grab one from the chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, is it known how many Russian soldiers are refusing orders at this time, and how widespread is it?
Russian soldiers are refusing their orders from what our current understanding is only in the Novomikhailivka battlefield, or really the Battle of Volodar. That's the only area we know where forces are refusing orders to the point that the Russians have brought out barrier units, or, barrier units to execute deserters and those who are refusing orders. That's what we know at the moment. We don't really know of any deserting or mutinying Russian forces in other parts of the line. But this area, near Volodar, has at least one division-sized force of the Russian army in it, which is fairly large. Division is somewhere around, I believe, like 5,000 strong, 5,000 men strong. So that's actually a fairly significant part of the Russian military that may be in open revolt. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you for supporting that live chat, Made in Canada. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have another super chat. This time it's from Eldad Sarek, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, good sir. He says, them pronghorns look yummy. I'm not going to lie. And take a live chat question.
And thank you for sponsoring a live chat, Eldad. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to eat one of them pronghorns. And they are up here in this area. Oh, look, Matthew. Boulder.
Bolder. Getting bolder.
And gun barrel. It's like the but let's see here. Rocky Mountain National Park. We drove through somewhere. Like, I think it was this road here. I don't know. Yeah, I think it was this road towards Laramie. No, we took the interstate. I don't know where the hell we were, but I remember we took this interstate up here, and then we went down to Salt Lake City over here in this direction. I be dipped. I can't remember where I saw the pronghorn. Wait a minute. No, I'm still at a loss. I still have no idea. Sadly, I won't be able to show y'all where we saw the pronghorn because we were on like a road trip around the western United States when we saw one. But nevertheless, I will look into that a little bit more. I still want to eat one, though. While I may not be able to know exactly where I saw one, I'm going to eat one eventually. So with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving back to our live chat questions, we have one from Quantum Fighter, who says, how many men is in the AFU total, and will there ever be a 1,000,000-man army?
Actually, right now, according to Zelensky, it is a 1,000,000-man army. There are 1,000,000 service members in the armed forces of Ukraine, making it that 1,000,000-man force we're looking for. And I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And believe it or not, this is actually the last one of the night because we're out of questions. We have one left in the spreadsheet. So, Enforcer, would you like to do the thing?
Well, I be dipped. And so with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Uncovered Cube, who says, do we know how many drones Ukraine's producing a day, and how long can they keep fighting with drones without Western help?
The Ukrainians are producing probably at least across the entire country about 100 drones a day at a bare minimum. Considering that they are using a good amount of them a day, I think they're only meeting the ability at 100 a day to replenish their losses, the drones that were expended in the FPV role or lost due to enemy action. So they will be able to keep on going. At least into the foreseeable future, probably without Western support, because the Ukrainian drone industry is probably one of the largest in the world at this point. And so that's what I have to say about that, at least based off of what I would know. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I might be wrong on my numbers and information there, but I think the Ukrainians will be just fine as far as the drones go. And also, another good nice guy said, what about the super chats? Believe it or not, we've actually addressed them all. That was all we had for tonight, and those were all the live chats we had tonight, too. We literally got to everybody. And I got to thank everyone so much once again for watching. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream for y'all tonight. 33,000 of y'all have watched this stream before we even went off air. And we are, of course, highly honored to know that we were able to tell the news to all 33,000 of y'all. I hope y'all do join us again tomorrow as we cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Of course, good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Least Spring Army. The Least Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great stream. And once again, thank you all for the support. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Hiram Slava. And don't forget to don't buy any rock for my mom. And good night.
Oh, hello there.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.